All right, so we had to restart that live because there was no opposition. Only like what's it called? Like one. Only one opposition, and it wasn't. They didn't really have any arguments. Oh, hello. What is your age and what is your stance?
How old do I have to be for the panel?
I'm 72. Um,
Oh wait, that's the dog guy. Okay.
The dog guy is crazy.
mm-hmm.
All right, I should have. All right, guys, try to like the lie so opposition.
Who's Bane?
You prompt.
Bane, are you alive or broken?
Whoa, whose mic is that?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This is ear grape, and I
Forget
do not
my-
consent to this shit.
Forget that my phone makes weird noise when it's on charger.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 32.
Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I'm pro-life.
WW. Okay.
Yo,
Elephant.
but holy shit, this guy saw the dinosaurs when he was born. 32. Goddamn.
Jimmy Crickets, brother.
We got.
Yeah,
up on the
I
thing.
was born when dial-up internet was a thing.
Oh my gosh.
Lock in.
When
lock
you had
in.
to sit and listen to that freaking horrid freaking dial tone.
Oh
It
my.
still
This guy is. Oh my goodness.
didn't.
The sky was the sky like green when you were born too.
Yeah, totally, bro. It was green and water was red and the
Holy
moon was
shit.
yellow.
We are cooked.
Was the world in black and white?
Yeah, totally. And I swear to God, the Messiah come down and he was speaking in different tongues when I was born.
Wish I could relate.
But yeah, no, I'm being serious about the whole dial-up thing, man. Anytime I hear that tone, it makes me cringe.
What if I play it right now?
Yeah, I just don't. No, because I had to sit and listen to that while I was a kid every time I wanted to get on the fucking internet. Ugh.
So does anybody want to have a good faith linear dialectical conversation in a normative fashion about epistemological and linguistic nihilism?
Speak English,
Oh.
please.
That wasn't a joke.
I completely agree that it's white knighting if you're pro-choice as a man, because honestly, I look at it this way: if you do the deed as to which is known for procreation, which every freaking human being in this world knows that's what it is for, I'm sorry you made a conscientious fucking choice. Now you have to deal with the choice you fucking made. And it's just called taking responsibility for your damn actions.
W not white knighting.
Yeah. So I don't why not for anybody.
No, the only nice I'm trying to see is from the Crusade if we started.
Nice. All right, any opposition? Request up. Or we don't have to do another restart.
Because I was gonna say anybody that's pro-choice is just it doesn't want to take responsibility for the things they did.
I think it's partly how full the panel is.
Yeah, we should probably. Some people could drop down, and that's okay. You can stay.
Goth growth is
Who is this? Wait, who is this diva person?
I know
Diva's a
Diva,
good
they're
one.
pro-life.
Oh,
They just started getting into debating. I'm trying to help them out of it.
let's invite some other people.
Hey, you know what cracks me up? Talking about also white knighting. Those guys that, like, anytime that a woman starts some shit with, like, let's say, like, with a dude or whatever, and they come over, they're like, oh, no, man, like, don't say that about her, bro. Like, it's like, no. She started this shit. She's gonna hear every bit of what I gotta say. You need to back the fuck up. This got nothing to do with you, bro.
Do you know why sometimes I feel like men like sometimes shouldn't have like they shouldn't have a choice in this matter?
Mm.
Because personally, if I had an unwilling pregnancy, I would jump down the stairs. That's not even a
Oh
lie.
my god, why? You don't have to care for the child after you birth it.
I mean,
Bro, while you're at it,
I would just like I could not
Any
like
opposition? Any opposition?
like I don't know. It just would be a terrible situation. Even though I know like it's morally wrong.
Oh, we got Gadfly. I think Gadfly is back. Did you reconsider our conversation the last 2 lives?
Who is this?
Gadfly. He was the guy who justified everything on the prompt.
Oh,
Gadfly is back for the 3rd time.
Let me ask y'all this.
What?
Real fast, because I do gotta pop off. I gotta wake up early in the morning. I gotta wake up at 5. But I run this by everybody I come across a little while back, or a couple years back, right?
Alright.
Met this girl, started talking to her for a couple months, right up almost to a year. So I decided I was gonna take her on a first date, right? And it wasn't gonna be nothing major, nothing expensive, nothing like that. It was gonna be a cheap date because it's first date. I don't know you
Was it
well enough to
McDonald's?
take you on some expensive shit.
like,
Gadfly's
why
Anyway,
are people look, Payne, you should be morally obligated to make at least 7 figures a year. A cheap
shit.
year.
Wait, this
Morally
is Gadfly.
obligated.
Hold on.
You either take me as I am, or you can fuck off. That's the way
Hold on. This is Gadfly's favorite prompt.
alright, Gadfly. What's your argument?
What's my sorry? What was that?
What's your argument?
What is my argument for what?
Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
He's pro-choice. He's
Pro
pro-choice.
choice.
Hold on, I'll take him down a line of questioning. Are you pro-life or
Wait, oh
pro-choice?
my fucking god. I can never have anything.
Mm-hmm. That's the plot. Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
If by pro-choice you mean, do I believe that there should be a legal right to terminate?
That's
What?
Are you pro-life? Okay, so do you think that the action of abortion is morally permissible?
I don't.
Morally permissible? Under
Mhm.
normal circumstances, no.
Okay, so I have no contentions.
Wait, what do you mean normal circumstances?
He's asking me, do I think getting an abortion is morally permissible under normal
What
circumstances?
would be
No.
considered a normal circumstance?
Typical pregnancies.
What's a
you already-
typical
So most
pregnancy?
pregnancies-
You already
so
talked
most-
about this. You already talked
He's
about this.
saying he's saying most pregnancies are like you should not get an abortion.
Why?
No. Morally speaking, yes. Most pregnancies involving
Just invoked
consensual.
a normative property. word.
Wait, let
I
him.
just said should. That would
What are you
be
saying, Gadfly?
the logical entailment of the view.
Most pregnancies involving consensual smacks between adults, yes, but there are exceptions that would concern me, and I would think that for example, if this is an extreme example, but if one were pregnant during slavery times, I think getting abortion may very well be the morally right thing to do.
That's why you can't say that word. You have to say slavery.
So,
Okay.
Wait, I think you
Labor.
can say slavery. Actually, I think it's.
Well,
in
whenever
your, oh, I'm sorry, Eva.
Insofar as that, I mean, I might even agree. Like, if the property or the entity doesn't have future valuable experiences, I might agree that the abortion is probably justified in that sort of example. It depends on what's meant by slavery and like what exactly the property or the the things being involved in that sort of action. I might agree, but
But what's more,
Those-
like, how much more can someone suffer other than being unalived?
Excuse
what?
me.
No. So okay, look, I take there to be harm by death, but propositions can be invoked, or rather, different things can be talked about in the harm of death. There are specific things that seem to be more harmful than death. Because,
Such as-
look, take it this way. in a counterfactual sense, would they be better off or worse off than death? And if it is worse off than death, then the death is extremely harmful and that action is probably unjustified. But if the action in the counterfactual world seems to be worse off, then I'm sure that there's some arguments you can be making there, right?
Wait,
Like, if you were born into a pit of lava and could inevitably, literally never grow up into anything with future valuable experiences, and we had epistemological access, or rather, epistemic access to that sort of knowledge, then the abortion is justified.
wait. What if the person wants to live that life? Well, who are you to decide that life for them?
Well, if we had like epistemic knowledge that the person wants to live that life, then I mean, sure, that's fine, but that's just not something that we have. I'm just saying that the abortion is justified in some action that they're not going to have future valuable experiences.
What would we consider a future valuable experience?
Like, what are examples of valuable experiences?
Yeah.
Like hopes, dreams, desires, projects, pleasures, things like that. Hedonistic states, all sorts of things.
Right. Well, anyways, we're kind of investigating Gadfly's stance. I mean, we were talking to him for like 5 hours the other day.
We might have another off. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's. I mean, you made him sound like he was like full pro-choice, but it doesn't seem like he is.
I am. I believe that people should have the legal right to do it. I don't think it's morally right under normal
Oh, I
circumstances.
see. I see. So then, if you think it's morally wrong, then why do you think people should have the legal right to do it?
I guess we're going to go through this again.
Oh my
No, well,
god.
I've never talked to you, dude.
No, he's gonna leave. He's gonna justify all these things. We've done it already.
Okay, then what's the point of having him up here then? If there isn't, if you guys see no point
Well, I
arguing,
mean, I thought you changed your mind. Like, did you have something to add? I think because you were.
Change my mind about what?
I don't know, because you were talking to Chewy yesterday, and he said something. I don't know. Did you reconsider anything?
I think that people, yeah, I think that people should have the right, the legal right to do many of those things.
So you think that like people should have the legal right to like unalive certain fetuses due to their race?
Oh boy, should people have the legal right? I think that people should have. This is interesting. So let me give you a different example.
Well, no, you
No,
can't. No, it's just a question that I would like you to answer, please.
the answer is yes, but the point we're trying to make is, oh, this is a crazy idea. But I'm going to give an example to explain. I think that people have a legal right, for example, to marry someone for any reason, right? I don't think that the government should be involved in that issue. If a woman wants to terminate a pregnancy, I think she should be able to do it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she should have the right to terminate the fetus.
What?
Wait. So,
We talked about. So yeah,
Oh, then I don't even grant that that's an abortion.
yeah, and
What do you mean? An abortion is a termination of a pregnancy.
yeah, so I go by the CDC definition,
Section
which
is
is
a C-section
I.
and
Oh
abortion.
my God, Ben.
It is not induced. An abortion is an
It's
induced
okay.
termination
It's
of a
one
okay.
at a
pregnancy.
time,
Yeah,
people. One
I'm
at a
trying to
time.
have dialogue with him. Like,
Yeah,
what's up?
I shall respect and have the dirt dog.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I just go by the CDC definition, which means the intentional unaliving of a fetus in the intrauterine pregnancy.
I don't think that's what it says, but
I
whatever.
mean, it is the gist of it.
Someone needs to
It re-
drop so the other person can join the panel. So we
it re- oh, what?
might have to drop Diva. Sorry.
Well,
mean,
why, Diva?
Oh.
It results in a pregnancy of a. Sorry, hold on. It results in the delivery of an unalived fetus.
Yes, because the fetus could not survive on its own.
And no, the fetus was already unalived inside of utero and then removed.
Okay, what I am saying is this, and perhaps the term.
Sorry.
What I am saying is this, that a mother should have the right not to be pregnant. If she does not want to be pregnant, she should have that right. Now, if it has reached a stage in which the fetus can survive independent of the mother, there is no right to terminate the fetus. You can't there is no right to say I want to terminate the fetus. You can end the pregnancy, right? You can, I don't know, do whatever is necessary to end the pregnancy, but there is no right to terminate a fetus. Ordinarily, because fetuses cannot survive on their own, at least at the beginning stages of development, they can't survive on their own. Yes, terminating a pregnancy would be effectively terminating the fetus, but that is an unfortunate circumstance that I think we allow in other areas of life, where if someone has a right to do something, but it leads to an unfortunate bad outcome, we don't say, well, you don't have the right to do that thing. We just accept that it's an unfortunate bad
Well,
outcome.
no, that's not necessarily true. The thing is that, at least in America, there is consequences if you use your body to harm others or if you infringe on other people's rights.
No, this is what I mean. Let me give you a different example. People generally believe that humans need that humans psychologically need human interaction, right? We generally believe that you would go insane. I don't know if you can say that, but you would, lose your mind.
Delete yourself or something?
No, insane. You can say insane.
You would lose your mind if you don't have human interaction. Now, imagine if every individual person in America decided we don't want to interact with Bunny because X, Y, and Z. Should the government say, no, you must interact with Bunny because otherwise she might self-delete herself after she goes insane? I think the answer is no. It's an unfortunate circumstance that because you are human, you can't live without, interaction, but people shouldn't be forced to give you that interaction.
I don't see how this is analogous to the abortion issue at all. I mean,
Well, can I explain the analogy? If the fetus cannot survive outside of the mother, then compelling the mother to carry the fetus would be compelling her to allow the fetus to use her body for 9 months. That is the analogy. But if the fetus could survive without the mother, then the mother has no right to terminate the fetus. The doctors or whatever should just remove the fetus and put it somewhere else, grow it in a tube or whatever, and the fetus should be fine. That's the analogy. You just because your condition is such that you need somebody else in order to survive does not give you an entitlement to that person.
so then a 2-month-old infant that has zero entitlement to its mother feeding it breast milk?
If she chooses to take it home after the hospital, then she is consenting to parenting.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm going to backtrack for a second because you just contradicted yourself.
How
You're
did I
saying that until that the fetus can be independent of the mother, there is no... the fetus doesn't have a right to use the mother's body. And you're just arguing viability, which viability is different depending on your location.
I don't see a contradiction.
Do you have a cutoff?
Do I have a cutoff for when? I will let the doctors decide whether or not the fetus can survive on its own. I don't know.
I mean, you have to have like some type of cutoff.
I'm not a medical doctor. I said if the fetus can
You don't
survive
have
on
to
its
be a
own.
medical doctor to know like when the standard like viability is, at least in America.
Okay, well, I guess we can Google it.
Yeah, it's around 24. It's like 22 to 24 weeks.
Well, there you go.
Around.
I wanted him to look at okay. Anyways. Yeah. I mean, regardless, the thing is that fetuses that are 6 weeks old, 8 weeks old, 10 weeks old, they're not supposed to survive outside of the womb. They're in their natural habitat. They are in a safe place. And so
They're
it's
not supposed to do. What is that? What is that? A theological they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to survive outside of the womb at 8 weeks. They're still growing and developing, just how like we're not supposed to survive on fucking Neptune or Mars.
What are you talking about? We could survive if we had appropriate equipment. I'm not sure
We
I
can't
understand.
survive on fucking Neptune.
And if the fetus had proper the proper environment, they could survive.
Oh,
as
it's
well.
you again. I think it's been a while. I don't know if you remember me. It's been a while.
I don't remember, but what's the argument?
His argument is that pretty much until the baby can survive outside of the mother, it's morally permissible to unalive it.
So would you say
That's not what I
so-
said. I said they should have the legal right to do so.
Okay, so like at the point of viability, do you think that at that particular point that she still has the right to have an abortion, or does she have to at that point carry on the pregnancy? Or do you think that she should have to
Well, she has the right.
have an induction?
Sorry, she has the right to end the pregnancy, and
Okay, so
if
she has the right to end the pregnancy at that particular point. So would you say at that particular point that she can either get it an actual an abortion, or would you say that she has to actually at that particular point she actually has to have like an induction?
So
an
let me-
induction would be to remove
Yeah, to
remove the
child
fetus.
from the womb.
Yes, so she wouldn't have the right to terminate the fetus.
Okay, so that's at what? How many weeks?
I think it's at 24. I don't know.
Okay, so 24 weeks. Let's just say, using your argument, right? So 24 weeks, they remove the fetus, and this child ends up with life circumstances that cause life-changing disabilities because they removed the child too early. Like, you're okay with allowing that?
Are you? Yes, it is
So you're
unfortunate.
fine with a mother removing a child at 24 weeks, knowing that she's going to cause her child disabilities that could impact that child for life, just because you want to like save that particular argument?
No, it's not about saving an argument. It's
No, but
about.
like, Sarah, like, are you good with that? Like her removing the child, knowing
Keep
that
saying, "Am
that
I good
child
with
at
that?" What are
24
you? What are
weeks
you?
is probably going to enter the NICU and going to end up, because it's not really safe for the child to be removed at 24 weeks. Just because they can survive outside the womb doesn't mean that they should be removed from the womb at 24 weeks.
Can you speak
I
to
never
me,
said they
please?
should. I
Yeah,
said
you,
that
you
there
said
is.
that
it's
women
No,
should have the
okay.
legal
can I?
right to do so. Just
I
real
said
quick,
yes.
Okay
just
for
real
them to be
quick,
removed.
Godfly. Under your argument that at viability, women should have the legal right to remove their fetuses, or their babies. You can see at 24 weeks, the survival rate is only at 52%.
And that's
And
unfortunate.
Yeah, and what if they
Like,
yes,
what is your
it's
point?
unfortunate.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate if you need somebody else to survive. If
And
you
for
need
the
my,
ones-
can I
and for the
finish?
ones
If you
that
need
do
my kidney
survive.
to survive,
Yeah,
if
and
you,
for the ones that do survive, wait, Gadfly, what about the ones that do survive that have lifelong
Birth
disabilities?
defects, yes.
what is your point? That is unfortunate.
I think I'm making my point.
Wait, can I
It is
say
You're
something?
fine with
unfortunate.
them being removed before, and you don't see that as a problem. Like if a mother was to take a procedure against her child that was going to cause her child lifelong disabilities, would you consider that abuse? Let's just say it was a 2-year-old and she had a medical procedure done that was going to cause her 2-year-old to have lifelong disabilities. Would you consider that to be child abuse?
A child that has already been born,
Yeah, at 2 years old. Yep.
why would she have any right to the body of a child?
And instead of asking me questions, like I'm
Yes, I
just
would consider that
asking you,
abuse.
would it be abuse? Okay.
Yes.
So then what's going to be the symmetry breaker between the child that she's going to have removed at 24 weeks that she knows that has a very good chance of being harmed by being removed at 24 weeks?
The symmetry
What's gonna be the
breaker.
symmetry breaker in
The
this
symmetry breaker is that a 2-year-old child does not require the mother's body. If she is abusing the child, a 2-year-old child, then that would be abuse. A fetus,
Sure. So,
unfortunately, can I?
Sure. So the 2-year-old doesn't require the mother's body. Okay. So let's just say we could even take this back. Do you think that a mother that just had a newborn, does the newborn require the mother's body?
If she chooses to take it home and assume the responsibility of a parent.
Who's to say that she has to take it home? Let's just say
And-
she has a birth at home.
What?
Let's just say she has a home birth.
Okay.
And let's just say she decides she has the home birth, right? And she decides to go on a cruise, right? And like just basically
That is
just leave the child there. Like, does she do any harm by like, and should she be charged if the child unalives as a result?
Yes, she should.
Why?
Because you shouldn't leave children unsupervised.
That's the only that's the only complaint you have. Like, is just because it's unsupervised.
Well, obviously, if the child was supervised, then there would be someone responsible watching over the child. Why wouldn't that be my complaint?
Yeah, so the 2-year-old that you said that needs the mother's body, right? Like, let's just say it's 2, right? And she leaves. Would you consider it to be harmful if she just left the child there?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so
Trying to make an
definitely
argument.
does require the
Can we
mother's
just get to
body
the
even outside the womb, is what you're saying.
what?
So unless she can safely transfer this responsibility, right? You would
Yes,
say that she has the obligation to care for this child, right?
unless she can Wait, repeat that.
Unless she can safely transfer this obligation, she has an obligation to care for the child, correct?
If she goes full term and has a child,
Okay, now you're adding like things that I didn't ask. I asked you if a
no,
mother.
because you're trying to put
No, no,
words
no,
into my
no.
mouth. Why can't I
If a
explain
mother,
my idea?
if a
Why can't I
mother,
explain
if
my
a
thoughts?
mother has, well,
Oh
just
my
just
God.
answer the hypothetical. Don't run from it. If a mother cannot safely transfer her obligation to someone else, does she have an obligation to care for the child? That is the question.
Has the child been born?
That's why is that relevant?
Because if a mother goes full term to have
Yeah,
a
that's
child,
just special
oh
pleading.
my
That's
God,
just special pleading to pregnancy.
I'm not
Just
special
answer the
pleading
question.
anything.
Just answer the question.
No,
Does
I'm
a
not,
mother
because you're
have an
trying to ask a
obligation?
question that I am not already.
Does a mother have an obligation to care for her child if she cannot safely transfer this?
A child has no right to use the mother's body. I
If
don't
she doesn't
know.
want to, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then she can go on that cruise.
No, she cannot.
Why not?
Because if she carries the child to term, she's assuming responsibilities of a parent.
It's a cryptic pregnancy. She doesn't know that she gave that she was pregnant. She gives birth. Can she go on that cruise?
She didn't know she was pregnant
Yep,
for
that
9
happens.
months.
Yeah, it actually
That's
happens.
Happens. It
It
happens a
actually
lot.
happens. 1 in 625 pregnancies
Well,
result.
if a child somehow pops out of her
Yeah.
and there is no one there,
Yep.
then no, she cannot.
Why not?
In that context, if you okay, you know what? If your
You're just
position
begging the
is
question at this point.
what?
You're just begging the question. You have a hidden premise in your argument.
What
that
is
you're
my
not
hidden
fleshing
premise?
out.
What is my hidden premise?
Yeah, the hidden premise is that the way that you value the child that's unborn versus because it's obvious, right? Like, I give you a scenario outside of utero, and you automatically assume she has a responsibility, whether she wants to do this or not. She has an obligation to care for the child until she can safely transfer.
She doesn't
this
have an obligation to care
I
for it.
can
She has
give
an
you the
obligation
same
to do the
example in
minimum
utero,
of
somehow you
transferring
think
it to
it's
someone
different.
else. I never said she had an obligation to care for it. She has the obligation to do
Really?
the
So she can go
minimum.
on the cruise then?
If she transfers the child to someone else, yes.
No, only if she can safely transfer this obligation, right?
If yes, sure.
Exactly. But you don't apply that in utero. What's the argument for that?
Ease. Do you recognize the possibility that if someone can do something easily, that there might be an obligation to do it if it's relatively easy to do?
Who said it's easy? I could just make the conditions to where it's not as easy.
Then maybe she
Let's
doesn't
be
have an
real. You
obligation.
don't
If you
care
want to make
about
the
how
conditions
easy
such
it
that
is
it's
to
not,
do. Let's
if you
be
want to
real.
make
You
the
wouldn't
condition,
care.
can
Like,
I-
I could make this same level of easiness in the scenario to like out of utero, and you're still gonna make the argument that she has an obligation out of utero.
No, I'm not.
Let's
If you
get
want to
down
make
to
the
brass
condition that
tacks of
she
like
she
what the
will
actual
lose,
argument
if
is.
you want to make the condition that she will lose her limbs to take care of this child, then no, I'm not going to agree with you
So
that she
what's
has an
the
obligation
argument
to
that
do
in
so.
pregnancy that's what happens in the normative case?
What?
What's the argument that that is the case in the normative case of abortion?
I'm confused. I don't know where you're going.
Okay,
What
the
you're saying.
general case of abortion, to make it easier so you understand the words I'm using. In the general case of abortion that I'm talking about, do women lose limbs in pregnancy?
No, gosh.
Okay, so in the general case of pregnancy, right, where it is not harmful to them,
You know
like
what? If she
what is
can,
going to be the argument that in out of utero they have a responsibility to care for that child, but in utero they don't? What's going to be the symmetry breaker in these two cases?
there is no responsibility in it of itself to care for the child.
Why?
There is, assuming again, we're assuming cases where the
But
mother
you
did
do
not,
believe that there is a responsibility outside
assuming
of
that the mother
utero.
did not take, assuming that the mother did not assume that responsibility, which is the hypotheticals that you've been operating with.
What makes it that she assumes responsibility?
If you give birth to a child and then you take it home, there is,
I gave you the scenario where she gives birth at home, so she didn't take it home.
oh
The
my God,
child she gave
that
birth
wouldn't
to
make a
at home.
difference. If she gave birth at home, knowing she was fully pregnant and carried it
I
9
gave you a
months,
scenario where she didn't know that she was pregnant.
then maybe she doesn't have a responsibility. Maybe
Oh,
she
so
doesn't.
you would say
There you
that
go.
if a woman gives birth at home to a child and the child is sitting there and she doesn't do any actions, she calls for help, but they can't get to her right away. And let's just say a weekend passes and she doesn't feed the child. If the child unalives, like she should have no obligation, there's no even moral responsibility to
If
her
this,
actions, right?
if it is possible for a woman to be pregnant for 9 months, unaware of it, and then a baby just randomly pops
Are
out,
you really saying you don't think that's possible?
you're the one who said it is. I've never heard of this, so
Like
I'm going to take your word for it.
1 in 2,500 pregnancies are in
Okay,
that
so what is
particular
the problem?
situation.
If that
So
we
it's
can,
not as uncommon as you think it is. It's 1 in
okay,
2,500 pregnancies.
1 out of 2,500.
Yeah.
So what? 0.00. Okay, fine.
Okay. Well, if you're going to make the argument that that's not that big of a number, then all the examples you gave of like the harm to the mother through a pregnancy, that's going to fall under that as well. So if you want to talk about small numbers of these cases happening, I can just use that
No,
as your
I'm
argument
not.
of small cases happening. Either way, it happens. So in that
Yes.
given scenario, it doesn't matter if it happens once, twice, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, it still happens. In
Yes,
that
that's
given scenario to where she doesn't realize she's pregnant, she gives birth at home. Does she have at least a moral obligation to provide for that child? And if she doesn't, should she be held morally culpable for the unaliving of her child if she doesn't if she refuses to take care of that child?
I am going to rely on some concept. People can have obligations that should be enforceable when it is relatively easy to do.
Well,
You
what's
may
the
not
standard
like
of
this.
what's the standard of what's considered easy?
I am going to appeal to common sense. You may not like this. For example, I think if someone is drowning and all you had to do was toss them a life jacket and you don't do it, yes, I think that is morally egregious. Now, if you have to jump into the water and you're not a good swimmer, I don't think you should have to do that. Where
Yeah,
do
let's
you
just
want
say
me to
you
draw
were
the
good.
line? I
Yeah,
can't
let's
tell
just
you. I'm going to appeal to common sense. I can't tell you.
sure. So, like, let's just say for example, right? Like you're just gonna say you're just gonna appeal to common sense, right? Okay, so if let's just say it's your particular child, right? That needs and they're like 2 or 3 years old, right? and to keep them alive, all you would have to do is feed them. Like, do you think you have an obligation to that?
Again, if I've already assumed the responsibility of parenting, then yes, of course, that is straightforward.
What establishes that?
If you choose to take a child into your care, then obviously,
Again, the situation is that they're already there.
what are you? If a child randomly pops up in front of me, yes, there is
they're
no
already in
obligation
your
to take
home.
care
They're
of it.
already in your home, right?
If a child magically
okay.
pops up in front of me in
sure.
my home, there is no
Okay, sure.
obligation
So
to
let
take
me
care
let me
of it.
just clear this for you. A woman decides that she's going to have the child, right? She starts taking prenatal vitamins and she wants to have this pregnancy. Does she have the right at any point during pregnancy to decide she doesn't want to have this child and get an abortion? Can she revoke her obligation during pregnancy? If she doesn't want to have this child, can she revoke her consent to have this child?
At any point, again,
at any
she can
point during
terminate the pregnancy. She cannot terminate the fetus.
Okay,
Yes,
past viability, or like before viability, does she have the right to
yes, she
revoke?
can.
Okay, so perfect. So you believe that she can revoke her obligation, right? Like she doesn't have to continue. So what's going to be the difference, like outside of like pregnancy, that in this particular case that they just don't revoke their consent?
Wait, repeat your question.
Yeah. So let's just say that this person decides to revoke their consent and they're not going to take care of this child after all.
Yeah, they can hand it over to the state.
Let's just say that they're not able to at that exact moment.
Again, you're going to have to tell me how difficult
You're
it is
just
to do.
assuming that the state exists or that someone is going to take this child. Why is it the argument that someone else has a responsibility to take care of this child? What's going to be the argument for that?
What is the? I think that's why is the argument for
Why do
saying
you
that.
think someone else has an obligation to take care of this child?
I think that societies have obligation to take care of unwanted children. Yes.
But mothers don't. Fathers don't. Like the actual parents don't have an actual obligation to take care of their children, but societies do.
You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should find a difference maker between those two scenarios. Yeah, I'll take the position that if you give birth to a child and you assume responsibility, perhaps you can't revoke it, at least not easily.
I just think that regardless of whether you give birth or not, the moment that you bring a child into existence,
The moment that you bring a
which
person into the
happens
world, there
prior
should,
to birth, birth isn't what establishes the child's existence. It happens prior to that.
well, I
And you
think,
have an obligation to, at the very least, if you're going to transfer your obligation, which I think should be in a rarity, I don't agree with just immediately like transferring your obligation, right? Like I think that parents should
yes,
step
you're
up
right.
to the plate.
If
If they're not
generally,
able to, then they
you
should
create,
safely transfer their obligation. I just believe that I don't see a moral prescriptive difference why I should believe that should be different out of in utero and out of utero, like why those differences are different. I don't see anything that tells me like why I should think those things should be different.
again, my position. No, this is an interesting question. My position is that there is no right to physically use another person's body. Whether or not that means that there is no right to expect someone to, at the very least, transfer you to someone else if they're unable to take care of you.
But you
Um,
do believe that the mother should have to use her body. You agreed with me that
not in the way.
if she gives birth, that she should have an obligation to that child, even if it means using her
Yes,
body to care for that child, at least until she can safely transfer that obligation to someone else outside of birth. The only difference between my position and your position is you're saying that that obligation only extends after birth, or will even, honestly, you agree that it actually should happen after viability. You don't think the mother should be able to use her body as she wishes after this, whatever idea of viability you have. And again, like, I can just point out the harms to, like, if you just say, well, I could make the inductive case, like it should just be induced at 20, 21 weeks. The harm that's caused to the child at removing the child that soon, 20, 21 weeks. And then just imagine those children that this is the law you want. This is what you want. And this child is going to be removed from their womb. And the amount of harm that's going to be caused to that child from removing from the womb way prior to when they are fully, like, able to be removed from the womb. Like,
Yes, I
that's
remain
what you
committed to
want to
that.
see as a society.
I remain committed to the idea that people should have the right not
Even if
to
you're
have
going to
the.
harm your child.
You keep saying your child as if this is.
As if it's not your child. Who else is she pregnant with? Is she pregnant with
Do you know
someone?
something that I don't know?
Is she pregnant with like another person's child that she's not the mother of?
No, I said you keep saying your child as if you're talking to me specifically. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Well, I
But
can agree that maybe this wouldn't impact you directly. Like, maybe this wouldn't be your child. Maybe you have the stance that I wouldn't personally get it, but it still impacts the idea that you would be okay with other people being in this position and saying that, guess what? I don't care if I remove this child at 21 weeks. Like, even if it's going to harm my particular child, even if I'm going to cause them harm, birth defects, like maybe missing limbs, maybe like cognitive defects, like purposely, I'm going to remove this child. Like, that's okay.
I think they should have the legal right to do that. Yes.
I think that's wild.
Okay.
And
That begs
and
a
yeah,
question
and
I had
if you
earlier,
think that's
actually.
okay, I think that's wild.
You say it should be legally permissible. Didn't you also say that it's immoral?
There is no tension there. I don't see any tension there.
If we're talking about your normative position, I don't care what like legality ought to be. I'm just caring about what you think ought to be.
What do I think you ought to do?
Yes.
I think most people ought not to create children.
Ought not to create children?
What?
So is he like an antinatalist or something?
I think most people are just not good parents. It's not that I'm an anti-natalist.
I agree with that. But the child's already created in that situation. The choice should have been made before.
No, he asked me a question. What do I think about what would I do in that situation? And I'm saying I probably would have never been in that situation. I don't think I would be a great parent.
That's
No,
what Jordan Peterson.
I was just trying to clarify.
I was
that
at a
you
George.
said
Go ahead.
I wouldn't
you
be in that
said it
situation.
should be
Yeah,
legal,
that's right, Catholic.
but you don't find it morally permissible, right?
But we feel that way about a lot of things.
What?
Infidelity, being a racist. Like,
Gadfly, we talked about this. There's a threshold of things, and this.
yes, but he's asking me a question and I'm answering his question.
Right.
I was just asking for clarification.
Yes, I think there are many cases where we say, I believe this is wrong, but you should have the right to do it. Again, infidelity. I don't think most people believe that the government should be locking people up for being unfaithful.
I
Yeah,
can
but I don't
agree
think
with
that
you,
really
but I don't
falls
think
under the
that-
same
that-
category.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to meet the threshold I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
I think like
obviously, I'm talking about
murder would
actual
meet the
harm.
threshold more.
That is not the question you asked me. You asked me, isn't there an inconsistency in me believing that it is wrong to do something, but believing that people should have the legal right to do it. And I'm saying,
Yeah, and like even so, why not just make that case to like even the case like outside the womb, right? Like to be consistent, right? Like the mother shouldn't have any obligation to her child. She can go on that cruise, right? Because like it's her just her right, it's her body. Like it doesn't matter whether her child unalives, like right? Like the newborn should just be okay, right? 11-day cruise, and she just goes on it, right? Like it's just because like maybe morally it's not okay, but it's okay for her to do like legally, right?
again, I am converted to the idea that if you assume the responsibility, then no, it wouldn't be.
Again, what
Wait,
We've already
constitutes
visited
what
this.
constitutes what brings that responsibility on? Point to what exactly like makes that responsibility.
Carrying a fetus full term.
And
To
she didn't
me,
know she was just carrying. So
again, we've been
biological
through
action
this.
is what
Then maybe she
grants like
doesn't.
this
Maybe she
responsibility.
doesn't. If you want, we've been through
wait,
this. You've
hold
already
on.
made your point. You find it disgusting. Okay,
Okay,
move
hold
on.
on. What is your evidence that being born is what grants a being moral obligation?
What?
What is your evidence that being
What do
born,
you mean
that's
by
your
my
cutoff?
evidence?
What are
Like,
you
are you looking for a
arguing?
study? We're
What
doing
gives
moral.
what gives a being moral obligation after it's born?
I think what you're asking is why does the mother have an obligation after the baby is born?
Yeah, what's your argument that like it has like protections after birth? That's what he means, or should have protections?
As in, why shouldn't you be able to unalive it? Like,
Yes.
Yes. What's the difference between it coming out of the womb and then 10 minutes later it's being cut from the umbilical cord and then now it has moral obligation?
it's not a question of whether or not the fetus has a. Again,
It's a plea to
if the
location.
child is already born, then obviously it does not require the mother's physical body to survive. You can't just kill
Okay,
something.
cool. This so then she can go on the cruise then, right?
Do you know what a proximal obligation is?
Do I? Sorry, what was that? A
Do you know what a
proximal,
proximal obligation is?
a proximal obligation? No, I have not heard that term.
Okay, what that is basically you have a certain obligation, especially over your own child, to take care of them if you're in a space that you're the only person who can take care of them. It's called an proximal obligation.
He already agrees with that, like outside of the utero. I'm trying to
Okay, I'm
figure
just
out
trying.
like
Yeah, so why does this? Okay, so if that logic applies outside or if that's something you agree with now outside the utero, then all you're doing is pleading to location? That's what I'm saying. It's a logical fallacy. All you're saying is, oh, because it's in the womb, then now it's granted moral consideration. What's your
No,
evidence? What's your
I'm
argument?
saying, gosh,
Dependency?
the fetus does not have an entitlement to use the mother's body.
okay,
I
so
don't.
cool. Then she doesn't have to care for the actual child like outside of utero, right?
Not unless she assumes that responsibility.
So what assumes that responsibility?
If you give birth to a
So
full-born,
just a birth, just a biological action. That
no.
is the only thing
I mean, I think
necessary to establish responsibility. Why is a biological action that she has no control of? Because she has no control when she gives birth. Like, why is that what establishes? Why should I believe that's what actually establishes the responsibility?
again, I think that generally speaking, if there is an option to give a child to the state and you choose not to do that, you're assuming responsibility for it.
So if there's not an option for her to give the child to the state immediately, let's just say she can't give the child to the state immediately, does she have an obligation to care for the child until she can?
Again, we're going back to the difficulty of doing that again.
Oh yeah, I know it's difficult for your part.
No, I'm saying my response is going to be on the difficulty of her doing that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yes.
here's the problem that you're saying is you're making an argument for bodily autonomy. I don't really think you even know what you're trying to say. So the difficulty level, right? So how much all you've been saying this whole time would lead to pro-life conclusions. That's what we're saying. Okay, so pro-life conclusions would be ripping the mother's arms apart. That would be a causal pro-life conclusion. Okay, because if her life is at risk, that would be a pro-life conclusion with exceptions. What amount of harm can a mother go through that allows her to have an AB?
I'm not following.
So
My argument
Why
was
she has
that
responsibility.
what?
Yeah, I just want to understand, like, what's the argument that she has a responsibility out of utero that she doesn't have in utero?
He had an option to turn it over to the state. She chose not to do that. She assumed the
Wait,
responsibility.
again, in my situation, it's a cryptic pregnancy. She didn't realize she was pregnant.
Then
She
perhaps she
calls.
doesn't
Wait,
have
wait,
an
wait,
obligation
wait.
to
Let me
answer.
finish.
Then she does not have
I'm
one.
gonna
I've
cover.
already
I'm
answered
gonna.
this question.
I'm gonna
You keep
cover
asking the
this.
same question.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover this. Okay, so you understand. So if she didn't know she was pregnant and she gives birth, and she calls, and they're not gonna be able to take the child right away, so long as she can say that, like she didn't know that she was pregnant, right? It's a cryptic pregnancy. She can allow that. She can go on that cruise and allow her child to starve, and you don't believe that there's any moral repercussions that should happen to her, correct?
Again, if that would have been an easy thing for her to do, there should be moral repercussions. If not, then no.
What's defined by easy?
I am going to rely on common. Again, I'm going to just have to rely on different hypotheticals. It will be case by case decision.
Gadfly, that is subjective. Okay,
Yeah, I was about to say
easiness is subjective.
No, it's not. I think we allow it in
common
every other.
sense-
I think we allow it in in other moral cases. I think we recognize.
Common sense is you would agree upon is not always agreed upon, correct?
Yes, it's not, and that's the difficulty of moral thinking. But again, I think with the case of someone drowning, I think we all agree that if all you had to do is toss them a life jacket, you should morally do that.
What
And
if
I
you
think
pushed them in
we
there?
also agree. Can I finish? I think we also agree if you don't know how to swim and there is the significant possibility of harm to you of diving in and saving them, there is no obligation for you to do that. Now,
Right. So
where-
like if you just so I would agree with you. So if a mother is going to if she doesn't have an obligation to like risk her own life, right? Like in the case of her own life, like she doesn't know how to swim, like in that particular case, right? But if she knows how to just stay pregnant and like not unalive her child, she should have that obligation, right? Like if it's not going to cost her own life, right? And in a particular scenario you gave us, like jumping into that particular pool, and if they don't know how to swim, like that could cost them their life. Like I would agree with you. Like
I mean,
they
even if
probably
they
should
knew how to
consider that
swim,
at
I
their
don't think
point.
they're obligated to jump into the pool.
But if they're able to toss a life jacket or don't take an action that's going to end the life of their child, which is just the same as like just the life jacket, I would agree with you there. So it seems like your scenario just reaches to a pro-life conclusion.
I mean, I think yes. I think the weakest part of my argument is what to do with consensual smacks, but I'll have to figure that out later, I guess.
Yeah, I think that there's other parts of it, but there's other.
No,
parts.
I don't think there's
That
any weakness to
said-
my argument for
Wait,
non-consensual
wait.
smacks.
I was just gonna say, I think there's other parts of it are weak of your argument too, but I will say that I can honor and respect someone that's at least willing to acknowledge that there might be some like weakness in their arguments that they have to.
What
look
is the other weakness? I don't see any weakness in my argument for non-consensual smacks.
Well, like we could get into that, but like I would say that the general case of abortion is going to be consensual, like 98%. So
Yes, which is what I'm saying. Well,
you could actually hold a pro-life position and argue for causal and say that, like
That's what I
in
did.
cases of
actually, I'm not. It's not just a question of was it consensual. Oh, by the way, I hope you don't drink. I believe people shouldn't drink. But
Well, unfortunately for you guys.
well, what if they do drink? You wouldn't have an issue with it, right? Because they're just doing whatever they want with their body, right?
no, I don't think that the state should arrest him. But
My body, my choice.
That's just
anyways,
weird.
I
Making a judgment on that and then be pro-choice.
Anyways, I think it's not just a question of is it consensual or not consensual. I think there's also the question of degree of effort. If a mother, for example, decided to get, I don't know what the procedure is called, where women, I think people colloquially refer to it as getting your tubes tied or whatever.
Yes.
But if she decided to do that, but she still got pregnant anyways, I think she should be perfectly fine with terminating terminating the pregnancy. I don't think I have a difficult. I don't think there's much difficult for me in explaining that. She didn't. She wasn't trying to get pregnant, and she took significant steps to avoid it, but it still happened. So I don't think she should be held responsible for that.
So let's just say that like I was playing like let's just say me and a couple of my friends like we wanted to play baseball, right? Like in our yard, right? And let's just say that I wrapped the baseball like in like different like layers so that it was very protective. Like I was trying to make sure that no matter what happened, right, like that the baseball like didn't cause any damage, right? But let's just say that like the person I was playing with, and we were playing a game. Let's just say I hit the ball through a neighbor's yard and like broke their window. Would you say that I should still be held accountable for like repairing that window, even though I took, like steps to like avoid that window from being broken?
If you took every reasonable step, no.
So you think that people could like break people's windows and
That's
like
not what I
damage
said.
their property,
Like, no, I think people,
even if
I
they,
think
just
people should be
because they
held
took
responsible for
steps?
negligence. I think people should be
Okay,
held
so then
responsible
there
for
would still be a
negligence. But
responsibility for their actions, even if they try to prevent their actions from being harmed.
it's not just a question of trying.
That's
If
just one
someone,
scenario.
Hold on, let him respond. Let him respond.
what is the
Yeah.
what is the probability of a woman getting pregnant after getting her tubes tied? What?
Very low.
Exactly.
Probably
So
very
if
low, but it
somebody,
doesn't mean it couldn't happen.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. If somebody takes every portion such that the possibility of them breaking your window is 0.001, and it just so happens that they break your window, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think they should be held accountable for that.
Yeah, I don't think most people would
Okay.
agree with you.
Okay, what if there was like a 99.9% chance? Would that change your opinion?
Of course, then you're just being reckless.
So it's only based on percentage. So what's the percentage necessary? You think that the
There we go
threshold?
again.
Yeah, so what's
Again,
gonna
I
be
would
the
have to rely
threshold?
on some degree. Again, I would have to rely on some degree of reasonableness.
Which is
Reasonableness is never defined, unfortunately.
Just what do
And
you
I,
think ought to be? Gladfly?
like, you're asking, I don't understand the way you guys think about ethics. Do you think, like, what should be for example, what should be the age of consent? Do you think that there is a definitive line that could be drawn? No, we make choices based on reasonableness, right? We say, well, 14 is too young, but 35 is too high. Let's find some, like, this is how people do relations. And you're
There,
trying to pin me down to define reasonableness. I can't. I'm sorry.
is there reasonableness? Do you think that with like slavery, like that there's like a threshold of like
exactly.
what part of slavery would be be okay?
Oh my God.
Just
No,
asking.
because
Are you a
that
relativist?
is a violation.
What I'm talking
No.
about.
That's a
The
shock.
question that you're asking are two different types of questions.
Well, no, I'm just asking because like I think there were
No, I
people
don't
that
think there
thought
is a
that
reasonable amount
slavery,
of
that at least at
slavery.
one point, that there could be like some kind of compromise, right?
It's not about compromising. It's about the fact that we have to make a decision. I mean, just negligence in and of itself, as a matter in our judicial system, whether or not you are negligent is legally relevant, and it matters a lot. What counts as negligence? That's a matter of opinion, and we don't have there is no definitive definition of negligence. Whether or not someone is negligent is based on reasonableness. Like, that is just what it is.
Is it reasonable to assume that if you engage in an act that's ordered towards reproduction, that there's a chance that you become pregnant?
Not if you have your tubes tied.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's probably not a very good chance, but could it still happen? Is there a reasonable chance that it could still happen?
According to According to what the host said, apparently it's not a reasonable chance, given that it's very low. I don't know
Yeah,
what
it's
the
probably
chance
very
is.
low, but it could still happen, right?
Possibility is not enough. Yes, lots of things can happen. There is a non-0% chance that the planet will just explode. I
Yeah.
don't think it's reasonable to expect it to
So
explode.
there's a maybe like so if there was enough evidence to show that the chance of a drunk driver actually like causing an accident like harming, if it was a very low percentage that drinking and driving like actually cause like fatal accidents, would you say that it'd be okay to drink and drive?
I'm sure there is a non-zero. To answer your question, yes. I'm sure there is a very low percent chance. If you were to look at it, I'm sure we would find, for example, disparity in terms of, driving and accidents when it comes to gender. But we don't discriminate on the basis of gender simply because there is some potential percentage chance.
Gender?
Yes. If
I
you were
have
to
no
look,
idea what you just said there because that didn't address anything
the
I
point
just
that
said.
you're trying to, okay, so you said if there is a small percent chance that drunk driving only causes accidents at 0.001% of the
Like,
time, do I think that
where
that
did
should be?
gender come in that? I just said drinking and driving. Never
I'm trying
mentioned
to make a
gender.
point that we don't, maybe gender is not an good example. Wearing glasses. Let's assume for the sake of argument that, if you wear glasses, there is a non-0% chance that you're going to cause an accident. Do I think it should be illegal for people who wear glasses to drive? No, I don't. Like, I don't think that if I'm not going to say that just because there is a possibility of something, therefore we should criminalize it. And I don't think anybody will take that position because otherwise we will be criminalizing just about everything.
We're not criminalizing the action of them engaging in the sexual act. We would be criminalizing the idea that they're going to take from that the fact that the consequence led to that they
And if they
unalive
took
the
every
person. That's the issue.
and if they
Like we're
took
not
every
just it's not just about the pregnancy, it's what you want to do as a result of them being pregnancy. You're
you're
saying as a result of the pregnancy because well they didn't realize they were going to get pregnant. Like it was a very very small percentage they would get pregnant. So therefore they can be justified in their action to take that life because of the fact that there was a small chance. Like these are not the same situation, right? There can be
because
actions
they
that you
shouldn't be
take.
held responsible for the pregnancy.
Yeah, can I say something? Okay, so this is like imagine. Okay, so this is analogous. So if I have one drink, right, and then I leave the bar, now my odds of getting into a car accident just after one drink, just one beer, is very low, right? But I end up getting in a car accident, and then I would be morally responsible for this, correct?
Would you be morally responsible for getting into a car accident?
After just having one drink, my risk of
Even if
getting
you
in a car
didn't
accident.
have a drink, you would still be morally responsible. I don't understand.
Yes, but
Which even further proves our point.
exactly that even
No,
further proves our point. Exactly.
no, it doesn't.
What's his
Because again,
argument right now? What's his like pro life? Which
what steps did you take? It depends on whether or not you took reasonable steps to avoid getting into an accident. All you said was you got into an accident. Like you didn't even set up the scenario.
Mike? What's his art? What's the argument that establishes the proposition right now?
Apparently, like his argument, his entire argument. Are you talking about like his argument or mine?
His.
Yeah, like apparently, like his entire argument is that if you took reasonable steps to like to make sure that you didn't get pregnant, then therefore abortion should be permissible because like you so like he views causal like the idea of like you like I guess like if you didn't take any steps and I guess is that a fair assessment like Gadfly like if someone didn't take
I
any
think
steps
that I
say
think
they
that if
didn't use
someone
any
took
conception whatsoever like you would view that differently than someone that used conception. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yes, I would view it differently. If someone
Okay.
took reasonable steps to reduce the probability of something happening, but it still happens anyways,
What do you
they
mean
shouldn't be
by
held
What do you mean by reasonable?
God, here we go again. it's going to be case by case, and we're going to have to use our common sense.
Case by
If someone
case,
got their tubes tied, I
arbitrary.
think that's more than reasonable.
So
If
it's
the mother
arbitrary.
got, what was that?
So it's arbitrary.
No, it's not arbitrary.
It doesn't have a foundation. What's the
You know what?
foundation for reasonability?
What's the foundation for reasonability?
Yes. This is not
It's a
like
question of moral responsibility. Should you be
no
held morally responsible despite the fact that you've
no.
taken?
Do you even understand the question that like you might be
Apparently
having a hard
not. Go
time
ahead.
tracking? What's the question I just asked?
I'm curious about that as well. What is it that you asked?
Yeah, I'm seeing if he is tracking. So Gad, do you understand the word?
It's like tracking what? What is he tracking?
The
Hold on.
question I just asked.
What's the question?
Bryce answers asked his question.
Yeah. So Gad, do you understand the question that I asked, or would you like me to repeat it?
Repeat it.
Okay. So obviously there's a tracking error here. The question I asked is, what is the foundation for reasonability?
I have no
Of
idea what
what?
that question means.
Of what? What are you referring to?
Hey, JO,
I'm muting her. Go.
Yeah. So, Gad, when you say that your qualifier for what makes this action morally permissible is that the reasonability, you say it's context dependent, right? Which means it's arbitrary. But you're saying it's not arbitrary. So you're going to have to quantify or like demonstrate the foundation for reasonability. This is a qualifier to your position. You have the burden of proof. Now, please quantify. Voiceless. I didn't know you was a melanated brother. Yo.
Yes.
Anyways, Gad. So you need to demonstrate the foundation. Otherwise, it is arbitrary.
I have no idea what you're asking. I don't believe people should be morally held accountable for actions that they took reasonable steps. Again,
No.
significant.
Do you? Oh my gosh. You're saying
Then I
that
don't know the answer to your question, and this is a waste of my
if
time.
you're
I
saying
mean, most people
that
don't even
it-
know what you're asking. Maybe other
Like you
people
keep-
Yeah, because you can't track. Like that's
Tracking
not my
error.
fault. That's your fault.
Okay, I
So-
apologize. I can't track.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gad,
moving on. So-
we're not going to move on from this because this is a key point to your proposition, right? You're saying that if somebody takes reasonable steps to prevent an action, but you don't have a threshold for reasonability, then it is arbitrary. We can just dismiss this based on the fact that it's arbitrary. You have no ground.
No, it's not
or no-
arbitrary. I
Then
don't think it's
demonstrate
arbitrary.
the foundation for reasonability.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I'm just asking, are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I'm pro-life.
Everyone on the panel is pro-life besides you and Gad. Or I don't know.
Again, I think that, and this is the case in the. Maybe I'm being inspired by my experience, studying law. I think that whether or not someone took reasonable steps to avoid
Oh my gosh.
something,
Yes, you keep saying reasonable, right? If you're saying it's context dependent, then it's arbitrary.
why
saying-
does that make it arbitrary? Arbitrary
Because
means
you
without.
can't give the foundation for what makes something reasonable.
Boo, he's not even gonna,
Can I
he's
ask
just
you a
repeating
question?
himself.
No, can you answer my question? You're saying
No, I
it's
can't.
not.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're asking, so I can't even begin to answer.
If you can't, then that's fine, Gad. If you can't demonstrate the foundation to what
What's
is
your fucking question, Bryce?
Hey, why are you talking? Do you have social tracking issues yourself? Calm down.
Matter, Joey. Like, this is his argument. We don't need your actual argument yet. We'll get you within a second. Well, yeah.
Gadfly, you should honestly move on from this point because you don't know how to determine what is reasonable. You don't know what is reasonable.
That's what we've been trying to get out of him for the past 50 minutes.
Exactly. Dad, if you cannot demonstrate the foundation of reasonability, right, then you concede the point, which is a key point in your argument. Based on the fact that it is arbitrary, we can dismiss this argument.
Yeah, just saying that it's common sense isn't an actual point that any of us would actually find.
No one's going to subscribe to that idea. You have to tell
Anyone
us
can
why
say
this ought to
common
be the
sense. It's just common sense that you shouldn't abort your child. There you go.
Yeah.
You have no motivating reasons for your argument.
Right. That's the issue. There's no reason why why I would have any motivations to take your
I
argument.
think there is a motivating reason. It's inductive reasoning. We in many other cases where
What?
someone acts. Can I finish?
Let him respond.
In many other cases, when people act reasonably, we generally do not hold them accountable. If, for example, a father, if let's say a father's daughter was murdered and the father, jumps up in the courthouse and punches the defendant, people generally don't think he should be held accountable. They consider that to be a reasonable response, right? So do I need to give you a definition of reasonableness in order for you to conceptualize that in that context it would be
No,
reasonable?
no, you need to demonstrate the threshold for what is and is not reasonable. But you can't do that, which makes it arbitrary.
Do I need to demonstrate the threshold for what is or isn't reasonable in the context of the example that I just gave?
In the context of anything that you classify or give a qualifier to make something morally permissible, yes, that's your argument, Dad.
Okay.
Can you do that or no?
No, I can't. I assume that people are going to use their common sense, but that's
Give you
fine.
concession. I'm glad that you can see.
Ever heard of the argument common sense isn't so common, Gadfly?
I've heard
What that
people say
actually
that,
means?
yes,
You know what
but
that actually means? That means that most people disagree with what's actually common sense. Like if we had the exact argument for like what is exactly common, like yeah, that'd be one thing. Like I don't agree that your argument is common sense. I actually
I mean,
think that
generally,
your, I
when
actually
when
think that
people
your
actually,
argument I actually think that your argument leads to horrible conclusions that most people would not find to be like actual like convincing. I think that's where your arguments lead to.
Or
I
reasonable.
don't think that like your entailments of your arguments, like what you find convincing, like in and out of Euro, are like actually convincing to like most people as to like, and you haven't provided a sufficient justification as to like those moral prescriptive differences in and out of utero.
Yeah,
but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about, this is not a discussion about in or out of utero. This is a
It
discussion
literally is.
about,
what?
can I, no,
Let him respond. Let him
I've
respond.
already, look, Catholic, I've already conceded. I believe we've already moved past this. I've conceded to you that I have a problem in justifying the termination of a pregnancy in a case of consensual sex. I've already admitted that to you. The question now is, do I have a similar problem in cases of non-consensual sex or in cases in which someone took every conceivable,
It's still consent. Would you acknowledge that even in those cases to where they use contraception, that there could still be a case of consensual sex in those cases?
well, of course. The point is that they were,
Okay, but that's my point. So when you say that you have an issue with consensual sex,
wait, can I ask a question?
like then obviously you're not saying that in all cases. You're
So
saying
your
that
position is,
only in cases
can I ask a
to where
question
it's
just to
consensual
clarify?
and that they didn't use contraception.
Can I ask a question just to clarify? So your position is that whenever, just to be clear, whenever someone engages in consensual sex, why do I keep consensual sex, regardless of any precaution that they take, regardless of whether or not the mother tied her tubes and the guy got his thing snipped, regardless of any of
Yeah, could
that,
I respond to that?
they are still,
Yes.
Yes, morally
that's your
culpable
position.
for it.
They're still morally
Yes,
responsible
yeah,
for
so
it.
Gadfly, yes, they are.
Okay,
and here's
that's what I wanted
Here's
to
why.
know.
I'll give you the argument as to why. Okay, so let me just ask you a question before I begin the argument. Gadfly, given any form of contraception, is any form of contraception other than complete abstinence from, or like a complete abstaining from sexual intercourse, is any single form of contraception 100%?
No.
Yeah, I already gave. I gave
Okay,
him that
so,
idea too.
oh, you give it, okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
given
told
the
him
fact that,
there's like we can think of situations. So I gave him the drunk driving. Like, let's just say that there was a
I'm not even
very
going to go
small-
my hypothetical. I'm just
Like, I
going to
gave him,
explain
like,
to him
let's
like the
just
very
say that-
basics
let's
of
just
the
say that
logic.
No, I just want to make sure that you guys are
only
in your
resulted in
position.
One at a
1%
time.
of fatal accidents.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that
I'll
your
just do it really
position.
quickly. Gadfly here. I'll finish the argument and then let you
Go
respond.
ahead.
Okay?
Go
So,
ahead.
given the fact that other than complete abstinence from sexual intercourse, you would not have a 100% success rate in remaining unpregnant, right? Non-pregnant. You are consenting to some level, whether or not you're trying to take precautions to make it lesser likely, you're still consenting to the possibility of the pregnancy. Whether the possibility of the pregnancy is 100% because you know for a fact you're both incredibly fertile. I mean, it's never going to be 100, but you get what I mean here. Like 99% or whatever, because you're both incredibly fertile and you're intentionally doing something inside of the woman, or you are using pull-out method or any other case of contraception, condom, whatever, right? You're still going to have some level that you are consenting to in regards to the possibility of the pregnancy. You're still causally obligated to that fetus. Now, you can say whatever you want in regards to that. You can, go back and critique that however you may choose to do so. But at least from what I heard from you earlier, you couldn't give any actual you gave concessions. You couldn't give any actual retort to that argument. Like, you couldn't give any sort of like pushback.
My response is I think it leads to absurd conclusions. If I put
how
can I give you an example? If
Yeah,
I
I'm
put
asking
an
you
ice
how.
if I put an
I'm just
ice
asking
cube,
you how. What are you getting frustrated for, dude? I'm just saying how. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it leads to absurd conclusions. If I put out an ice cube on my sidewalk, right? There is a non-0% chance someone might slip and be unalived. There is a non-0% chance. You can't tell me that the probability of that is zero, because there is never a 0% chance of anything. So there is a non-0% chance. So let's suppose I do put out an ice cube, one single ice cube. I put it on my sidewalk. Somebody does end up slipping and they do end up being unalived. Should I be prosecuted for involuntary manslaughter?
Yes, because you're the one
Okay.
that put
Well,
that
if
thing
that's
there.
your position,
You're the one.
if that's
Hold
it,
on. You're
if
Gadfly.
that's your
Hold on.
position, can I just
Hold
finish?
on. Let me
Yeah,
answer.
no, you answered
asked
the
the
question.
Let
Let
me
me
answer
finish.
it.
One at a time. One at a
Let me
time.
answer it and give my reasoning for it, Gadfly.
Okay,
Is
go
that okay
ahead.
with you? Okay, so it would be, I would say that this is an accurate hypothetical, right? Given the fact that you're doing something which could or could not result in, the consequence, right? But the way that this analogy sort of falls apart is the fact that normally putting out, an ice cube on a sidewalk is not for the natural purpose of a person slipping and being unalived by it. Now, the natural
Why is that
purpose that
relevant?
is,
Why is that
it's
relevant?
because it's showing that your analogy is not a one-to-one analogy, but I'm saying even in the case that it is analogous, I'm going to give you an explanation of why I think that yes, you should still be held to account for the action which you took, because you're the one that placed this thing here. If I place an anvil on a 2x4 3 stories up, and that anvil happens to fall off of the 2x4 because it wasn't given proper support or whatever, and falls on someone's head,
You are changing
then
the
guess what? I'm held
hypothetical.
No, I'm just giving you another hypothetical that tests the same principles to show you that what you're saying is analogous in one sense, but not in another, right? An anvil isn't meant to unalive somebody. Semen is meant to impregnate someone. That's the way in which it's not analogous, but the way in which it is analogous is that you are doing an action. That action results in some consequence which you are responsible for. It's not absurd. There is no absurd conclusion to be had here. Even if I
Okay.
granted to you that it was perfectly analogous, but it's not. I'm just going to grant it to you that it is, and the conclusion is not absurd. You took an action that resulted in an individual bearing some consequence because of you and your action. That is what it is, right?
Okay, that's
So how
fine.
is it absurd logic?
I think most people wouldn't say that someone should be held criminally liable for involuntary manslaughter because they left an ice cube out on the sidewalk. But that's your position.
Don't straw
Sure.
man his position, dude.
Or
That's so
if I
bad
may,
faith.
What are
if
you
I
talking
may, you
about?
are always
That's
liable for the accidental death of somebody else. I hope you know that.
what was that?
In pretty much any circumstance, say I accidentally hit somebody with my car, I am liable for that, even if I took all of the precautions. Your argument does not hold up in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm willing.
You
to
might be
hold
civilly
that. Hey,
liable,
look,
yes.
Yeah,
But
no,
what are
Gadfly,
you?
not even civilly. People are
That is
criminally charged
responsible.
for negligence all of the time, dude. Like in the
You
same
think
instance
putting
that
out
I
an
gave
ice
you.
cube on the sidewalk is negligence? That's
Yeah,
what
Putting
you're
like
it
telling
in
me.
a high
Oh my
traffic
God.
area where someone
Here's the
could
thing.
slip
If
that is
you,
not your own
yes,
property yet.
yes,
Okay, guys,
yeah.
guys,
hold
look,
on, hold on.
let's
I'll give
just
you an
move on
example.
from
Here,
here.
Gadfly. Hold on, really quickly. I'll give you an example of how this can be the case. If you refuse to salt your sidewalk when there are icy conditions,
That's
right?
true.
And you don't do something, right? You refuse to salt your sidewalk, your portion of your property, and someone happens to come along, slip on that one little patch that you didn't salt, and happens to hit their head on the concrete and unalive as a consequence. Guess what? You're going to fucking jail. It's really fucking simple. Gadfly, it's the same thing, same exact thing.
Even if I get my vehicle inspected for safety, like you're
I
supposed
don't,
to,
I
if I
don't
hurt somebody, I'm
understand.
liable. I don't understand the logic here.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
again,
I
we have
don't
different
understand
intuitions,
how
and
he
that's
doesn't.
okay.
No, I don't think you understand what
Right,
we're
but
talking about.
intuitions
That
aren't
is
the
how
things that
the
actually.
law works, and you're using this as an example.
Bro,
Nobody's
Gadfly,
using an
Gadfly.
example of how
Okay,
the
here.
law
No,
works.
hold
We are
on. If
doing
he's gonna appeal to
we're doing
intuition, I'll
ethics.
do one
Nobody's
thing real
appealing
quick.
to
I promise.
legality. We're
You
doing
literally
Yeah,
ethics.
just
Gadfly,
did
no
though,
problem.
because you were
No.
talking
Oh
about
my
how
God.
what would happen if you
Hold
slipped
on,
on an
Angry.
ice
Hold
cube.
up. No. Well, he was testing my logic in that sense, but give me 1 second, Angry. Gadfly, really quickly. So if this is all just based off of different intuitions and whatever, it's fine that we all have different intuitions. None of it really matters at the end of the day because your intuitions are going to be different than mine. Okay, well, I have an intuition that you're wrong on everything that you're saying right now. And to be fair, I think that nothing that has come out of your mouth is logical in any sense of the term logical. Could you provide me an argument as to how my intuitions are wrong here?
Intuitions cannot be right or wrong. That's not how intuitions work.
Right. Okay, great. So then don't base something on your intuitions.
Thank
That's
you.
my point. Thank you.
That is the nature of ethics
All
and
right.
political
Well,
philosophy, unfortunately. But it was nice talking to you guys. I
yeah.
do
Well,
some
no,
reading.
I don't think you have an ethical. I don't even think you have an ethical
Like I
system,
could be,
Gadfly,
I
to
could
be
be
able
fine.
to
I could be fine
go
with
off
you
of.
like basing something on your intuitions, but I would just say that like your intuition is like it's previously like you've admitted yourself, Gadfly, that you have an issue with causal, like already. Like
Yes, I am willing to concede there is a.
intuitions that you support, like as far as in and out of utero, like the motivations that you give us to accept your argument just are like weak and flaccid. Like there's just no reason like why I should accept your like actual arguments. Like
Thanks for coming.
other than like it just seems to be like that you haven't been able to provide an actual argument in and out of utero, like why there's a difference in the mother's responsibility. Like those are the key things that I would be looking for. Like if you actually had an actual argument, maybe then we could say like maybe the pro-choice position could be better further substantiated, but you just didn't provide that.
Okay, I'll think about it. I'm sure we meet again.
Can I just ask real quick
I,
before you leave, God, what is your normative framework?
what do you mean? Are you asking whether or not I'm a utilitarian deontologist? I generally endorse virtue ethics.
Wait, you're a virtue
Virtue
ethicist and Gadfly and you're arguing pro-choice? Like what?
Again, this is not. We are doing political philosophy. I've already told you guys that I think under normal circumstances it would be wrong. You keep conflating these
This
two.
is so crazy as a virtue
How is it
ethicist,
crazy?
though, like to
There
like
is a difference
actually
between
argue.
morality and political.
Yeah,
Why
like
is that
what's
crazy?
going to be the difference? What's going to be the difference maker between like political and like that you think that under virtue ethics, like you should see society with like just whatever, like as a virtue ethicist, which I happen to be too as well. I want to see that in society as well. Like, what's the argument that you should just be like, oh well, whatever society wants, right? Like, who cares about my
Nobody
virtue?
said anything about whatever society wants. What I said is there is a distinction between moral philosophy and political philosophy. Simply because something is wrong under a moral theory is not sufficient for it to be criminalized. You have to go further and say that it is the type of wrong that ought to be criminalized. But you seem to think that because I'm a virtue
Yeah,
ethicist,
yeah.
I am automatic. You seem to think that because I am a virtue ethicist, that I'm automatically obligated to say that everything that isn't virtuous should be criminalized. And I don't think that follows.
I don't think I ever made that argument, but I would think in most cases, like if you acknowledge that there is harm Do you think there's harm being that is being done to the actual fetus if an abortion is done?
You guys have a good night. I'm gonna hop down as well.
Thanks, Bryce.
I also have to go. I have some reading to do. But again, yes, to answer, yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Like, if you got to go, like, I don't want to hold you.
All right. I'll think
Have a
about the
great
point
night.
that you said about the difference between utero and. I'm sure we'll meet again. I followed you, but we'll probably
Yeah,
won't.
yeah, absolutely. Like, no, like we can disagree, but like I don't have an issue with you personally. I don't want you to take that as like we have like anything other than that.
Yeah. Nice talking to you guys.
All right,
Good
thanks.
night.
All right, that was the third time we spoke to him this week. Anyone
Is
else?
it really?
Yes.
That's wild. Like sometimes it's funny. Like I don't even realize how many times I speak to someone. Like I think that yeah. Hopefully I'll give them some like things to think about. Like honestly, like I think that there is that battle between like what's actually right and like what he's willing to like actually argue. And I hope that he finds that like yeah, like you should actually take the position. Like if you're morally conflicted, that should give you a reason to like pause and like actually reflect why you're morally conflicted.
All right.
Yeah, these like his cutoff was like he had his principle of harm was dependency of the mother. I'm just
Right.
like, okay, so like if I'm outside of the mother's womb but I'm still attached to the umbilical cord, can I just unalive this being, right? I mean, that's just a crazy account of harm. I've never heard that.
I would argue
Yeah.
technically you're always dependent on the mother up until you
Exactly.
feed
That's what we
yourself,
said.
right?
We gave him reductio after reductio and hypothetical after, and he did not engage in it. He was just, but then he finally changed his stance at the end. But then he was like, "Yeah, this still doesn't apply." He just gave like a logical fallacy, which would be just appealing to location. It doesn't apply because it's in the womb, but give us no moral reason or any way to back up his argument at that point.
Yes, because 6 inches of birth canal makes all the difference, I guess. I don't know.
That's what I said. Yeah, like this woman is crowning, right? And like so, 10 minutes later, this woman's gonna be it's gonna be born. So what gives it? What's your evidence that this grants it moral obligation?
Well, I think even given them the situation, like, okay, well, you think that they should have an induction abortion at 21, 22 weeks. Let's just say this child makes it through all the steps, but they have like severe like disabilities. Like honestly, like obviously we're against like abortion just for that reason. But like the idea that you're going to intentionally cause an action that's going to give them disabilities by like inducing them early, like I think that's a real contention that they have to deal with if they're gonna defend like viability.
Oh, they don't
Yeah.
care though. They really don't care. I mean,
Like yeah, but I'm gonna like that's the point. Like I'm gonna show that to the people that are on the fence. Hopefully, like there's probably someone watching, maybe that might be on the fence, and show them like the idea of like taking a viability stance. It really, if you think that the woman should be able to even induce labor at that point, and like who cares, like that leads to some serious moral consequences.
Yeah, viability is literally the worst argument against pro-life. I mean, it's like first off, it's appeal to location. In rural areas, you'll see viability goes up, and in city areas, it actually goes down. And so it's just, I mean, viability outside of the womb, obviously. In Africa, it's 36 weeks. And so obviously in some lesser developed parts of the United States, it's even as high as 30 weeks. But yeah, it's completely subjective, and it's not something that I would ever want to. Yeah, exactly. So what are you willing to just take this out of the womb, and then at 25 weeks, even if that was like the earliest cutoff of viability, because even if it's in a NICU and has all the best medicine, the chances of this being either even unaliving or having some major medical issue is very high.
Hey, but spot
I don't
on to a
know that
lot
the
of the
chances
guys
are
that
very
came
high.
out. Sorry.
Are you telling me that viability is not a good argument?
It's the worst.
Not even remotely.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not very good.
Are you telling me that it is not very good?
Not very good.
Yes, we just said that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't deal with Gadfly, bro. I've heard him talk for maybe 6 hours
Yeah, it
More
was
than
kind
that
of
at this point. More than that at this point. Probably like
Yeah,
almost
and
10.
it's every time it's annoying as hell. It's just a circular thing where it's like, well, I'm gonna plead to legality, then I'm gonna plead to common sense, then I'm gonna plead to location, and then he's gonna act like he doesn't know what any of it means after you call him out on it. It's just the same over.
the poor dude couldn't understand what liability is, and that was really annoying. Because he's like, do you think that if I put an ice cube on a trafficked area where people could slip and fall, I should be in trouble for that? Yes.
Yeah.
Duh.
Absolutely. And then his answer is gonna be something like, well, they should, but they shouldn't be legally responsible. And then you're like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? And then he's like, well, legality has to do with a lot. It's like the same thing, bro. Like, I can't do it with him, bro. Every time I see him join, I get on Fortnite or I start playing a game while I'm listening. Like, there's simply no way I can even try to engage with that. It's
I honestly think Adfly though could be like the next pro-lifer. Like I think he has that possibility.
Yeah, he does seem like right on the edge, but I don't think he's really understanding like causal and obviously understanding.
Yeah, I mean, even if he went under causal, like I would consider that like a W. Like honestly,
No,
like,
I meant like causal in his position, which would be like
like I don't agree with that. Like the idea that you're gonna like somehow, because I'm like every pregnancy is order, like every, like especially if it's consensual, like every particular act that you take, you understand that you have the possibility that pregnancy could incur, and that the actions that you take from that do have a devastating response. So like as far as like that child.
Yeah, ultimately you're always assuming the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's something that you understand. It's not like it's something.
Contraception's never been 100%.
Exactly.
All right. Wildflower is going first. I know who Wildflower is. Anyone?
The wildflower is here.
You guys can take this.
She's awesome.
Mula, yeah, I heard her or the person earlier.
All right, Mula, what is your age and what is your stance?
Yeah, I'm 21 and I'm pro-life.
Nice.
Nice.
I mean, you guys can talk to Wildflower. I mean,
Yeah, I've debated Wildflower quite a few times, and I honestly like she's a friend of mine. I will say it, and I don't feel any shame in saying that. But if any of you guys that have not debated Wildflower yet, I'm definitely welcome for you guys to do that.
Yeah, I don't know De Niro.
Oh
I've
yeah,
seen
but-
him on the panels a few times.
Yeah,
but
same.
yeah.
Same for me. Okay. So why are you pro-choice?
I have a pragmatic stance, so I just think it's justified to access abortion because they're exercising rights.
Okay, and what is a
In a
right?
nutshell.
And-
I take it to be a moral and legal entitlement.
Okay, and do you have a cutoff?
20 weeks.
And what gives you, or I guess, what is the reason that before 20 weeks the thing doesn't have moral obligation?
The thing doesn't have moral
No, the
obligation?
Bing. Sorry.
You mean the mom?
No, the Bing. Before 20 weeks, that's your cutoff, right?
Well, how would the fetus have a
Or
moral
after
obligation
after
to
20
anything?
weeks. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, So you just think that? Hold on. Let me get this straight. So after sentience, I take it that your bodily autonomy is changing. You think that that after sentience it gains. I think. Oh, let me just clarify. So you have a bodily autonomy stance. Okay. Does the reason a mother can get an abortion change before and after sentience?
I never brought up sentience. I don't
Oh,
care
I
about
thought you
that.
said 20 weeks. What were you applying? What was your cutoff for 20 weeks for?
It's just a precautionary point of viability, and I think when we're applying, like being able to do an action based on the rights that you have to your own body, it would be unethical to say that this should be extended to past viability, because if you're gonna have it unalived and removed, then you're just literally giving them the right to unalive, And if you're just having it removed, then you're giving it potentially like 67 to 70% chance of unaliving and or round the clock care, lifelong disorders, things like that. So I don't think that has anything to do with a right that you have to your own body.
Okay. And just to be clear, so viability is what grants this being like moral consideration?
I didn't imply that either. Well, maybe you thought I implied that, but no, I'd give it moral consideration at implantation. I'm not saying it's not morally valued at all.
Oh, okay. And so, like, what are some reasons like a mother can have an AB?
As long as there's a human inside of her body she doesn't want there and it's prior to 20 weeks, she's justified in removing them.
Okay. So just based off the potential that it may cause some level of harm to them, is that correct? Or?
Well, there's like a risk of some, like, I guess you can call it harm. I don't know if I'd use the word harm, but yeah, it's like risk mitigation, self-governance, and integrity. So.
Okay. And so, okay. Yeah. Well, I would just say, like, so for any reason okay, hold on. Let me just get your stance real quick on viability. So if so let's just say it hits 25 weeks, it's in like an inner city, so then it's medically viable to get into the NICU. Okay. Would you say that, maybe you stated this and I just didn't hear you, but would you say that like unaliving or taking this being out of this mother and then putting it in like a NICU after viability, because she has some level of harm or whatever breaking your bodily autonomy, is that a good, is that like an accurate thing that you would say? Is that you would basically?
I don't know what you just said, but I'll just say past 20 weeks, it can be removed for medical reasons, no elective removal.
Okay, perfect.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on real quick.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You should be intuition pumping her on like the reasons prior to 20 weeks. That's what I would have done. But
Well, I was just trying to get her cut off.
Sorry, I'm back.
Why is
My
this-
I'm not gonna run like
Anyway.
that argument that last guy did. Like Wildflower believes that past 20 weeks that issue, the contention that I had with you removing the child and causing that child harm by just prematurely removing for no reason other you don't want the child anymore. Her 20-week cutoff is not going to allow for that. So yeah, it would have to be like an argument prior to 20 weeks.
Yeah. So do you think that basically, because you already said like any reason, is there like any reason? So prior to 20 weeks, any reason? Because after viability, it's only for medical reasons.
Well, again, just to remind you, I don't really argue from a morality stance, and that sounds like more of a moral question. I
Okay.
don't really, as long as there's a human inside of her body she doesn't want there, she's justified in removing it. So that's the only parameters necessary prior to 20 weeks also, but yeah.
Okay. So, so that's okay. That's kind of a crazy thing. So it doesn't matter. It could be like a racial reason. It could be like, like I can argue for eugenics. I can argue for anything, and that's all morally permissible. There's absolutely nothing that he permits, or like
Again, I don't make moral claims. Like, sure, I cannot agree with people's reasoning, but as long as I'm going based on the stance that I find the action to be justified under the fact that they're exercising their rights, and I don't think their rights should be stripped for being pregnant, I would find that to be a rights violation to prevent them from exercising these rights during a pregnancy. So yeah, whatever the reason is isn't necessarily going to be determined on whether they're justified for the reasons I gave you.
okay. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean,
Well, do you have a contention?
Yeah, sure. So,
or
like,
just calling it crazy doesn't do much.
okay, but okay, that's fine. So, do you think like, I mean, viability? Okay, it's actually not a bad argument, but it's like, it's just the morals of it is bankrupt, because for any reason I can get an AB, and you don't argue morals. I get that, but that's like pretty much the contention that I'm having here, I guess.
Okay, well, as far as like morality goes, I'm saying that it's immoral to prevent people from exercising their rights if it's in a just way. And I'm saying that it's just because it's prior to viability, so there's no, they're still within the right of exercising their own self-governance. And it's a human, it's alive within their body, so it's, an infringement of sorts. So, yeah, like, if they're a piece of shit, they're a piece of shit, but I don't think we can legislate that.
Okay. Do you think it's morally impermissible to like, basically, I'm trying to like TOS my way through this. Basically, do something with a dead person or something like that?
Do something with a dead person?
Like,
what do you mean?
have schmecks with the dead person.
Yeah.
No, I don't know where you got that from. No.
Oh, you don't think that's good or bad? What was
No.
your wait?
I mean, De Niro. You can ask her what's the argument that rights exist.
Yeah, but yeah, what is your argument that rights exist? Sorry, I'm eating right.
Well, I think like there needs to be some sort of enforcement arm, which is why I think rights aren't absolute, which is exactly why I have the cutoff that I do in order to protect those rights during pregnancy. So that's the enforcement arm. Now, the morality part of it is the fact that it's immoral to restrict people's rights when they are justified in exercising them for whatever given situation, and the parameters are met in a pregnancy to justify it.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it's an unwanted human in your body.
Yeah, like I would give the pushback I would give would be like more along the lines of like what establishes the rights to the violation in 20 weeks. That's where I would go.
Yeah. So, okay. So if we could understand, okay. So let me just. I'm trying to get your account of harm. If we can understand, like if a human is going to, or like if a female is going to have, or a mother, I guess in this case, is going to have like a perfectly healthy pregnancy, and this is a foreseeability throughout the whole pregnancy, would you say that she still has the right to unalive it?
I don't think she has a right to unalive. To be clear, she has a right to self-governance and removal. But what was the first part of your question?
If there was the foreseeability that this was a healthy pregnancy.
Oh, yeah, well, just based on risk assessment, like I mentioned earlier, you can have a foreseeable, healthy pregnancy, but we don't know what happens during labor and birth, which is usually where any sort of risk can come up. So it can be 0% risk, it could be 100% risk, it could be 50, we don't know. So I think that there should be choice in the matter as to whether or not you're willing to let your body and your life and everything else go through that.
Okay. And just being pregnant is enough to like assume that risk, correct?
Pregnancy does entail risk, yes.
Okay. And so you think that instead of the person waiting until they experience this risk, then that's when...
That's what risk mitigation means. So yeah, they're mitigating that risk.
And do you think that we should just actively mitigate every risk out there? Is this an
As long
absolute
as
stance
it's
that you take?
justified, I don't see why not. Again, no right is absolute, so...
Okay,
no.
so I could just say like, so if there's a risk, right, that, I'm basically, let's just say there's a risk that my kid is going to, I don't know, punch me in the face tonight, right? And I know that because he said he's going to punch me in the face tonight. And so I'm just trying to mitigate my risk, right? Because I don't want to get punched in the face, right? Is that basically morally permissible?
To mitigate the risk of being punched? I
Yeah,
don't
to mitigate
see why
the risk
it wouldn't
of
be.
anything. Okay, but how do you mitigate?
By,
Okay, so,
by doing what?
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So by unaliving or by unaliving the child.
Why the fuck? How did you? What makes you think that would be entailed in any of the claims that I've made so
Did
far?
you not just say that it's absolute?
No, I said they're not absolute.
Oh, okay. Tracking error. Okay. Yeah. So what makes it morally permissible in this stance? Just because it has no.
Makes what morally permissible? To prevent yourself from getting punched in the face?
Okay.
No, you
If
just
I
said that
may.
rights. You just said that rights aren't
What?
absolute. Right?
Can I step in here?
Yeah.
What he's doing here, and he's not doing the best way of doing it, but that's whatever. He's trying to say that if your logic is true, it must remain true no matter the circumstances.
Yeah, so a justifiable way of mitigating that risk would be to take your kid to their auntie's house for the night or something, you know? Like, you're just going to have a sleepover now. Like, that's mitigating that risk. I'm not saying
What if I
tie them
punch
to
the
a
child
chair
first?
or.
The next question.
What?
What if I punch the child first before he punches me?
That's obviously not justifiable, and I would hope that's obvious anyway.
Unaliving baby in utero is interesting how that works. Anyway,
I
back to
never
you guys.
said there was a right to unalive, but sure.
You said there's a right to self-governance. What gives someone that right?
By being human and alive.
What?
Where do rights come from?
By being human and alive. They're just innate human rights.
So why?
Because you said so.
Wait a second. Is the fetus not human and alive?
Sure
question.
is.
Then why does it not apply to the fetus then?
I never said it didn't. I can give equal rights to both of them. That still doesn't mean that anybody has a right to use somebody else's body against their will. It
Well-
still doesn't mean that they can't remove them.
Well, that's not I don't think that applies to the fetus here. The fetus is not some sort of unauthorized trespasser.
I never made the claim that it was.
Wait, so I'm confused as to why you think it's like.
Is though.
Well,
My
it's,
thought-
I grant
it's
that
like
you're
showing that way. Like
confused.
it's like part of like the evictionist thesis, which I
This
don't
is the
think.
equivalent of giving someone the keys to your
Okay,
house
with
and then
both
forcing
of you
the
talking is kind of crazy. I don't
Yeah,
know
order.
what
Oh,
you're
I
trying
agree
to
if you want to go ahead, but like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you
Order.
just give someone the keys to your house, and then when you see them in there, you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna unalive them because you're not supposed to be
I
here.
never once said
Order.
unaliving.
Order.
I said you have a right of removal. And yeah, if somebody's in your house and you don't want them there anymore and they're not willing to leave, then you do have a right to remove them. What are you talking
Even if you
about?
give them the keys.
Yeah, you still have a right to remove people.
Well,
What do you
except
think
rights
of
do
evicting
apply.
people is?
So
What? Okay,
if
okay, so
somebody
wait,
is
just to
Uh-huh.
be clear.
And they
Order,
still
one
don't
at a
have a
time.
right to be in your
One at a
house.
time.
So if you don't want them there, you have a right of removal.
Wait,
Are you
okay.
just saying this because the law says so? Like, what if the law did not say that? Like,
No, I'm not appealing to legality.
No, she's not appealing to legality, but I think this is all like problematic because like doctors, is it the case that
Then
doctors
point it
can
out.
doctors do this as well?
Do what? Remove
Evi-
people from a hospital? Yeah.
Evict patients when they no longer want to work on them?
If they're being hostile or something, yeah,
No,
there's
why
always.
does it have to be when
Why
they're
do you think they
hostile?
have? Why do you think there's? Because it has to be a just cause. That would be a just cause to have somebody removed from a hospital if they were
What's
being
the just
hostile or
cause in this
something.
case?
That there's a human inside your body you don't want there.
Yeah, I can just say that there's a patient inside my room that I don't want here.
Yeah, so you call security and have them removed.
Okay, so wait, even
What are
if
you
they're like,
talking about?
wait a minute. So like, let's just say that they're like, they have cancer, and I'm the only doctor that can help them. And
Did
say,
I
well, I don't
say
want
that
cancer.
though? You're
Wait,
changing
hold on.
things
I'm
now.
not
That's
changing
called moving
anything.
the goal. Yeah, you are because
What am I
I said
changing?
if they're hostile, and now you're trying to say, oh, now they're just a cancer patient that's laying there.
Wait,
Like,
why?
no,
Wait,
that
why?
wouldn't be
Wait, why are
hostility,
you
would
saying
it?
it hostile though?
Because that would be just. That would be a just reason to have somebody removed.
Well, I'm not. It's unclear how you're cashing out hostile. What makes the fetus hostile?
I didn't say the fetus was. You're giving me another scenario. So yeah, if the situation calls for it and it's just to remove them, then yeah, you can
Well,
definitely
you
remove
haven't given a
them.
reason as to why it's just. Like I thought you're using hostile
If
as the
they're
reason
being
why.
hostile, that would
Well, the
be a
fetus. You
reason
just
to
claimed that
remove
the
somebody
fetus.
from a hospital,
Wait,
not a fetus. I'm not making any claims that a fetus is hostile. I'm saying the just cause to have it removed from her body is the fact that it's in her body, it's a human, she doesn't want it there.
Yeah, and I'm saying that this can apply to any scenario, which would be problematic.
which is not how rights work.
Wait, what do you mean it's not how it works? It works in this case. Why doesn't
Because
it work?
you no,
That's just
because they're not absolute. Remember? You can't absolutely apply this principle to every single given situation.
Okay, so why it's applied here and not other cases?
Where? In the hospital? Which one are you talking about?
Any scenario you can think of where I like, let's just
You
say
have
like
to give me
I
one
want to
if you're
evict my
pressing me on my
child.
stance.
Wait, let's just say I want to evict my child because I don't want my child in my house anymore. And
Yeah,
he's like
you can do
5.
that.
He's
Oh,
like
well, if they're
5.
5, you can transfer the custody to somebody else. for
No, no, I just
guardianship.
like no, like I can't do that, right? There's no one
Yeah,
to
you
transfer
can.
it to. I'm just saying
Okay, then
in
I
the
guess they're staying.
wait, why are they staying?
Because the only way that you can justly remove a 5-year-old from your home is if you can transfer care to somebody.
Wait, that's not true. Why
What?
would that be the just reason?
So you can just place them outside and shut the door? Like, what
Well,
would the
I mean, yeah, I don't
alternative
want
be?
them here. What?
Okay, then that's a weird hill you're gonna unalive on then.
Wait,
I'm
this
not
is
gonna
not even
unalive
my.
on that.
Wait, this is your position. How's it a
I
weird-
didn't make that claim. You're the one that made that claim.
This
I
is
did
an
not.
internal critique. I'm under your worldview. You said that the reason
I
why
did
the
not.
woman.
I gave you an answer. I
Yeah.
said you have to transfer custody. You're the one that's saying it's okay to
Well,
just
I'm
place
saying
them
why?
outside.
No, it just seems arbitrary. Why are you choosing that point and not just me kicking
Because
out the
this
child?
is how rights work, and they're not absolute. It has
Well,
to
this
be
is
just
at
for any
all.
given situation. I've already explained this to you. I
No,
don't
it
know
just
why
seems
this
like you're
is
picking
news.
and choosing as what's just.
Rights aren't absolute.
No. No. Hello? I've said
Okay,
this
then
like
their
6
right to evict
times.
somebody from a body is not absolute. Anyway, bye.
Yeah, that's why there's a 20-week cutoff. Anyway, you weren't listening or tracking.
Wait, why you place it at 20
It is no longer a right because it's not absolute. I can say that at any circumstance.
No, they're justified in any given situation as long as the parameters are met to be justified.
Wait,
The
hold on.
parameters
Why
are met.
is your
Stop
cutoff at
cutting me
20?
off.
Fine.
The parameters are met prior to 20 weeks as a precautionary point to viability. I don't want to have to repeat everything I said to De Niro already. If you guys weren't listening, I don't know what to tell you.
Wait, why do you put it at 20 weeks?
I literally just answered that. I said it's a precautionary point of viability.
The precautionary point of viability.
I'm sorry you're confused.
Yeah, I am confused. Like, what's the difference between the fetus in the womb and like a born fetus at like 21 weeks?
There's no such thing as a born fetus, but yeah, one's a fetus and one is born. What do you mean?
So wait.
Are you asking me the morally relevant difference?
Yeah, I'm asking you the morally relevant difference.
Yeah, one would be a bodily integrity infringement, one would not. And one would be a precautionary point of viability, which means she cannot remove it electively at 21 weeks anyways. That's what my cutoff entails.
Wait. You saying one's an infringement, the other isn't? Wait, what? Why?
Yeah,
why
because
did it-
one is inside of her body. That's what infringement means. It's impeding upon, it's inside of, hello?
Okay, so what if
Makes sense what that means.
what if the born, let's just say the new neonate at like 21 weeks requires like breastfeeding, and she doesn't want to give it to the child?
So was it born naturally at 21 weeks?
Yeah,
or
it
what?
was.
Because they can't breastfeed at 21 weeks.
I'm just saying that in this case they can.
That's physically impossible, but
Or it's
okay,
logically
yeah,
possible.
she should. No, it's not. But she can.
What law of logic does it?
Wait, what
can
law of logic does
breastfeed.
that violate?
She can She can breastfeed if she's able. Sure.
If she's able, I'm saying let's just say she doesn't want to.
Then
Would
it'll
be a
get
body,
formula.
would be an infringement.
I mean, you could use the F5s for Duck Deal.
It's not an infringement. Oh my god.
Wait, why is it not an
Okay,
infringement?
so bodily integrity is the right of removal. So what is she removing? Are you saying the breast milk is being removed against her will?
Yeah, the breast milk is being removed against her will.
But it
yeah.
was born as a preemie. Like, yeah, no, that's not. And again, I don't have a moral position, so I don't know why you keep asking me morally relevant questions.
Wait. How are you getting to the pragmatics of the morals?
I don't. Pragmatics means ethically applied. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
how
there's
do
going to
you
be
get-
morality included. That's literally what I'm answering.
Wait,
So morality is going to. I'm literally answering you. Morality is included because that's what ethics is grounded in. But ethics is going to be more so of how we can like apply it to a society. Like, for instance, if somebody said that, I don't know, Catholicism is morally correct, I would still say that it's not ethical to enforce an entire country to follow Catholicism or face some sort of consequence.
I would disagree
So,
slightly though. You can't
That
get
too.
you can't get to even an applied ethics position unless you have like normative ethics framework.
yeah, and like I said, I find it immoral to restrict people's rights if they're able to exercise it in a just way. And I think that it is a rights infringement to prevent her from removing other humans she doesn't want in her body.
Yeah, so
Just like in any
that
other
actually
situation.
that actually is a normative like ethics like argument. Like so you actually are
Yeah.
arguing under normative ethics. Like I would just like stick with
Well,
like
that part of it is, but yeah,
yeah,
I don't
like
have a normative
you
argument, like I
do.
said.
You do. Like you actually do. Like you're saying that I think it ought be the case that like until it's like 20 weeks that there is like that bodily right that they have and like past that like I might have like some superseding reason like why I think that the fetus should not be removed and that it should be cared for because they could survive outside of the womb. Like you could make an argument like that. It's still
No,
gonna
I
fall
know.
that could
I
still fall
know,
under
but
normative. Like you don't
yeah, it could fall under normative, but that's not going to be like why I'm pro-choice though. Like it's, I don't know, never mind. But
it
yeah, I have a
is
pragmatic
it
stance
is
towards
only
this
it
one.
is like you can apply the pragmatic, but honestly a lot of times even under the pragmatic you still have to kind of like run back to like the normative to like the like because like if I provide you a pragmatic solution and to your like action to the abortion that you didn't agree with, like still gonna say like, well, I still disagree with that. Like, and it's gonna run back to the normative anyways.
Well, I'm only going to disagree because I disagree with restricting people's rights.
Right,
That's
which is
ultimately,
normative.
it's not whether, yeah, but it's not whether or not I find the action that they're taking to be moral or not prior to 20 weeks. So that part of it's going to be irrelevant.
But you're arguing if you think that restricting women's right to their body is wrong, that's a normative position.
I know. I'm saying that's the extent that my normative argument goes, though.
Yeah, like I think that no matter what, and I say this out of love, right? Like you know that, right? Wildflower. I still think you have a normative argument. Like I would still like stick with
I know, and I'm agreeing
yeah.
with you. I'm saying
Okay.
yes, but that's the extent of it. Like,
That's
as far
fine.
as like why I have my cutoff and everything else, it's just whether or not they're justified in doing this at the end of the day.
So what established it for you? Like at like 20 weeks is like what established that for you?
The capacity has been met. So, like, when I say precautionary period of viability, they have a capacity for this viability no earlier than 20 weeks that we can see. So, like, there's, like, viability to me is not just surviving outside of the womb or medical technology or whatever. It's also the development of the organs and whether or not it'd be ethical to, like, force somebody to stay alive as well. Like, because yeah, they have to be intubated. They're the size of your palm. Like, it's almost cruel to
But you
sit there
think
and
it would
poke
be
and prod
you
them
think
to
if they
force
were
them to
healthy
stay
though?
alive.
You think if they were healthy though, like just removing them just because you want to remove them, that would cause harm to them, right?
Yeah, I have no elective removal past that point.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. So like I think that people could press that as well. Like obviously, like I can give you a lot more credit than I give some pro-choicers that think it's perfectly fine to remove them, even if you're going to cause harm to them at that particular point. No matter what, just remove them. Like obviously, I have a big issue with that. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of like establish that. Just kind of, but whoever wants to like argue, can go from there. I don't want to go too far.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I think the biggest qualms that I have, and I get it. I mean, this is actually, I've heard Wildflower's argument. This is why I'm not really engaging too much, is because if you're arguing from a pro-choice standpoint, this is like the position to kind of take. I mean, it's that basically pregnancy is going to break the bodily, is basically going to break her principle of harm, and then a prerequisite for viability. And that is could. I mean, obviously, the being is granted more moral consideration after it hits this 20 weeks for viability. But I guess the only argument that you can engage with her, and this is why it's hard to engage in a debate with her, is because she's just going to say any reason is justified, right? You could make an argument, okay, I could like build a society where if I think that I can make a society where there's no YT babies and that's fine. There's nothing. Like I can make an argument for eugenics or
No.
classism.
Is that is that ethical?
No, it's not ethical. But
So
I
that,
can make
exactly. So that wouldn't fall under my stance either.
Okay, what's ethical?
It's how we apply morality to a society. So yeah, it's not going to be like just one person's view on what they find to be moral or bad or whatever. It's going to be whether or not we can apply this like as a blanket statement. So no, it's not like it's ever going to be ethical to say that this one particular abortion clinic only aborts, a particular race or something like that. Like, no, I wouldn't advocate for something like that.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I wanted you to say. So, I mean, I could make a kind of a reductio, more of a hypothetical, where see if this would be morally permissible, right? So let's just say I have an all BLK family, right? And wait, what is that?
I just said thanks to Mike. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool. Sorry. Yeah, so let's just say I have an all BLK family, and it would frustrate my interest to basically have a YT kid because my BLK family would basically be at moral qualms with this. But I slept with a girl who has like a YT grandpa, but that's the only person on his side. And I get a DNA test, and we have a kid, and I get a DNA test at week 2, right? And I think that this, and I see that the baby's YT, but I cannot have a YT baby in my family. And this would frustrate my interest so much, right? This would cause me some kind of net negative amount of harm. And then, this would be, this is something that would give me a reason to unalive or have an AB at that point. What are your thoughts on this? Is this morally permissible? Ought this be the case? Should there be some kind of law? Without any law, anything ought be the case.
I didn't say that there's no law. I explicitly mentioned an enforcement arm, which would be the 20-week cutoff. Again, like the reasons that they're choosing, like that's in my stance, in my ought to be world, they're not even going to ask them why they're seeking this abortion. As long as they are pregnant, they do not want to be pregnant, and it's prior to 20 weeks. So again, this is just more moral claims. Like, no, of course I wouldn't agree to that. But that still doesn't mean that it's justified to prevent them from accessing a procedure that would put their autonomy and integrity in place and keep it intact.
So there ought to be nothing in place for like setting any standards morally, because you just think that.
Well, the only answer to that is to violate their privacy, like in what they're like. We don't question people that in depth on like their personal reasonings as to why they're getting a necessary procedure. So like if somebody needed a DNC for endometriosis, they're not going to question them on their morality. Like, I think that'd be weird. So yeah, I don't think that'd be relevant to why they're seeking this procedure to begin with.
Right, but I guess my argument would be that you grant these beings at least some moral consideration before 20 weeks, correct?
I've said that it's at implantation. Yep.
Okay, and do you think that you don't think that the fact that these beings could potentially experience futures is something to take into consideration?
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Okay. And so do you think depriving these beings of these futures is morally permissible?
I don't know about morally permissible as far as the action that would like entail something like that, but taking an action to keep your own flow intact, I guess you'd say, Yeah, that's like, self-defense basically, like a self-defense principle at that point. So
Self-defense, and obviously that's not absolute, right? So,
you can absolutely self-defend yourself. Yeah.
in certain situations, right? I mean, like I can't defend myself against a
Like
baby.
it's either, yeah, it's either self-defense or it's not basically with that. So yeah, that would always be absolute if it's self-defense, just like murder is absolutely always unjustified, but killing isn't necessarily always unjustified because yeah, we have self-defense.
Okay. So are you just like, I'm not trying to say it's a logical fallacy. Are you just saying like, legally speaking, this is the case, or just how are you grounding like
Legally speaking, which part?
okay, like legally speaking, self defense is like permissible, and so is murder isn't, and but that's the unjust
Well,
killing.
schmurder's a legal term, so I guess that would be legally speaking. But self-defense, I think, regardless if the law steps in, you're justified in defending yourself.
And is self defense objective?
Objective?
Subjective.
You mean, I mean, somebody might perceive that there's a threat, then yeah, if that's what you mean. But
Yeah.
again, self-defense is always, that is black and white to me. It's either it is self-defense or it's not.
Okay. So you don't think like one person's perception of what could be harmful to them is different from another's?
If you're mitigating risk, yeah, and like I said earlier, all pregnancy entails some sort of risk. It could be no risk, but we don't know for sure because it could also be for sure 100% there's a risk here, but you don't know until you go through the pregnancy and you're in labor. So, yeah, you are mitigating a risk, and that's defending yourself.
Okay. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, the risk mitigation. So you think that we should eliminate? Oh yeah, sorry, I kind of went down this path and someone said something. Do you think that we ought to mitigate every single risk that is out there to, even though it goes, anything that's in the best interest of the mother ought to be covered, as far as mitigating potential risk to her? Sorry, I don't know what's happening up there. I'm gonna mute that person. He's throwing me off. I thought I was gonna say something. Okay.
Wait, you said, and yeah, can you just repeat that?
Yeah, sorry, he was talking. I guess sneezing, whatever. Okay, so I said, should we just take proactive actions in order to mitigate risk?
Proactive actions to mitigate risk?
Yeah.
Should we violate bodily autonomy for the sole purpose of risk?
What? I feel like that's two different questions.
Okay.
I think it was the
repeat
same.
it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the question.
Okay. Should we just like any potential that there is for someone to experience a risk, right? Should we then just basically take like the steps to eliminate that risk?
It's kind of like a better safe than sorry principle. It sounds like what you're asking me. So, yeah, I think it's good to mitigate risk. If you happen to get in a car accident, to wear a seatbelt or something. That's pretty much what I mean by mitigate risk. Like, yeah, there's ways to mitigate risk. It doesn't mean that you have to go to the extreme to mitigate that risk in every single situation because it needs to be justified. And yeah, as long as you're not harming somebody in a way that is grounding why you're exercising your rights, then that wouldn't be justified. But if there is a way you could do that, then it would be justified. So it just depends on the situation. You'd have to give like an example or something.
Yeah, I mean, I could give an example, but I already know that you're going to say it's not absolute, so it wouldn't apply. Okay. So what I was going to say is, yeah.
Oh, by the way, Irish, mitigating a risk is preemptive. So, yeah. But you're kind of asking, like, your question's a double negative.
Wait, I still think that topic still might have been a good one, even though you say she might say it's not absolute. Like, would ideally zero risk be what you would want?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so you can
Something about
mitigate risk, but would you want zero risk?
If there was any possible way of doing that, then yeah, I think people would choose to not have a risk of a negative outcome
Yeah.
in
So
any given
for
situation. I just don't think that's possible.
well, for the hypothetical of like the cars, you can mitigate risk with a seatbelt, sure, but you can eliminate risk of car accidents if you just get rid of cars.
Yeah, and that I don't think that would be reasonable. So it'd be reasonable to mitigate the risk of, you know, taking the city bus or I don't know, riding a bike or something. I don't. It's whatever you
Wouldn't a
feel
city
is okay.
wouldn't a city bus still risk possible accidents?
Of course, but that's why there's different options of how you choose to mitigate that risk. Maybe you don't want to drive in a car because you're scared you're going to be the one to cause an accident. I don't know. That's why it depends on the situation.
Yeah, but it just seems like if we're just wait, can you guys hear me? It just seems like if we're trying to like go around like do you think that okay, so I must ask this question first. Do you think that like beings, I'm sure you do, you think like an offspring, human offspring holds like some utilitarian or some like utilitarian view to society?
Sure.
Okay. So then I mean just based off that then to basically I mean, just
There
because
could be
someone has
utility in having an abortion too, though. So, yeah.
and what's the utility in that?
Well, if we look at like, I think it's what the 70% of elective abortions statistically are due to financial reasons. Let's say that person does go through with the abortion due to that, and because they did that, they got in a better financial situation. They were able to complete whatever degree, whatever, buy a house, you know, whatever. And a couple years later, then they're able to have like 2, 3, 4 kids. But if they hadn't had that abortion, it's likely that they would have had that one baby, not been able to move up in, you know, society and economically and all that. And so they just end up having the one kid. It'd be more utility in the fact that they were able to be in a better situation and go on to have 2, 3, 4 kids, because they do provide utility to society.
Okay. Can I give you a reductio? I just want to hear, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. The kid in the river reductio. Like,
You'd have to run it again. I don't
yeah,
know.
okay, sorry. I see you on the panels all the time, so I'm just trying to be respectful. I'm just trying to like learn your views. I'm not trying to be like disrespectful at all. Okay, so the reductio goes like this. So there's a kid floating in the river, right? And there is basically there's a kid floating in the river. You know that you can save this kid, but on your way back from saving this kid, which he's perfectly healthy whenever you save him, you do fall and get bruised up or something. I don't know. But do you still think that like you're morally obligated to save that kid?
Yeah, that would be a good thing to do.
Okay. And even though you're going to endure some amount of harm?
Yeah, I think everything comes with harm. Like being pregnant comes with harm because you're going to be harmed during labor.
Right. So
So,
why
yeah.
this reductio, right? Would you be okay with experiencing like an amount of harm and even knowing what it is, but being okay with saving that child in that reductio, and then in this instance, not being okay with basically experiencing any amount of harm necessary to break your.
I mean, no offense, but I never once brought up any sort of accounts of harm. Very specific reasons for that, because I don't have like any account of harm that I'm willing to align with.
I can understand that. I
So,
apologize. Okay.
yeah, like I don't know. I don't think harm matters in all situations. If it's a virtuous thing to do, if you're able to do it, it's a morally good thing to do, then yeah, you probably should do that. But whether or not we'd hold them accountable for not doing whatever said action would be different for my stance.
Okay, so what if they're an Olympic swimmer, and then they see this kid, right? And should they like basically then be more morally obligated? And it's just they come back, they know that they can rescue this kid, they know that nothing's going to happen, and they can rescue the kid. Like
I've
I'm
already
just
answered this.
I'm just trying to understand like how can okay, here's a better way to put this. What is your evidence that it is what is your evidence that it is good to basically do anything proactively in order to prevent harm? I mean, in this instance, it's taking away utility. It's taking away like a utilitarian society.
How is it
Hold on,
taking
hold on.
away
Who's talking?
utility to
Sorry, someone kept
save
talking.
someone from the water? Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know
that
what you're
Reductio,
getting at.
you said you already answered it, so I just moved on. Because I'm just saying, like, someone who's this is what's kind of not grasping. Someone who is in a perfectly healthy state to carry on a pregnancy and take on a pregnancy and in a perfectly financial state or whatever else, you think that they
This is
just
another moral question. Yeah, so morally speaking, I'm probably pro-life. I probably don't agree with any abortion electively prior, or maybe prior to 12 weeks, I'd be okay with it. But I'm not saying that I'm okay with the reasoning as to why somebody would choose this, but I'm saying the fact that they have the choice should be there because they are justified in exercising their rights in these situations. Now, if a woman's pregnant, and we're saying that she cannot exercise her autonomy or integrity rights, even though she hasn't committed a crime, there's no just cause that would say that it's okay to strip them of these rights. Being pregnant isn't a crime, obviously. So, yeah, that's really all it comes down to is whether or not they're justified in doing this, and they are, under my view.
okay. Hold on, real quick. I'm going to introduce this guy real quick. 1 second. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Oh, oops. There it goes.
Already knows me.
Yeah, I know you too. I've already seen you. Okay. Did you want to say anything?
No, I was just listening for now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. All right. And everyone else on the panel. Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think this is just gonna come down to we're not at too much qualms. I think that, yeah, I think you're pro-life morally, but you just think someone ought have the right for any reason, and you don't want to get into like a moral debate because you think that this is just like something that they ought to be able to do. And I think that human beings are the type of thing that should be granted moral consideration, because they're the type of thing that can experience futures, and depriving them from these futures is morally bad.
No, I agree, but just not at the expense of somebody else's rights violation. I think that's more important. So,
And basically, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I get. I mean, we have clarity, but I just think that we have. I think I'm not trying to get in. I'm not even trying to get into like a huge debate because I don't want to seem like I'm coming off like rude or anything. But I think we have clarity. I think that this is pretty much aligned with pro-life morals, but you just think people ought have the right to do something because they can. I guess I don't know. They have the right to do it.
well,
So
they found it to be necessary, and it's a risk mitigation, not just because they can.
yeah, but like it's necessary, and they found it to be like risk mitigation, and it's like so like necessary would be subjective, and like risk would be subjective. Everything is,
Exactly. And that's why I wouldn't take that away from somebody else because
But-
it's going to be subjective to their view, their morals, their beliefs, their life, their risk. Every single pregnancy is going to be different from another. Even with the same woman in multiple pregnancies, it's going to be different every time. So there's no way to put a blanket statement and say that it's morally correct to just prevent anybody from making this choice, in my view, anyway.
yeah, I understand, and I'm not like I said. I think that I get it. I totally get where you're coming from, but I just disagree. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't really have too much more to debate about. I think that it's just crazy. Here's where I'm not really tracking. You're pro-life whenever it comes to like what ought to be, you think ought to be morally, and so you're
Not
putting some type
necessarily.
of. Oh, I thought you said that.
No, I said morally speaking, I probably am pro-life. It aligns more with like pro-life conclusions, morally speaking. If we lived in a perfect world, there was no need for elective abortions, there was no SA, things like that.
Yeah.
It was only done for medically necessary reasons, then yeah, I would change my view, but we don't live in a world like that. So ethically speaking and pragmatically speaking, how we can apply this, there would have to be, it would have to be just like left up to them and moral, like, or not moral, the ethics board.
So you're not willing to put any laws in place for any reason for anyone to not get
Oh my gosh, enforcement arm, remember? So the whole point this right is even protected for pregnant women in my stance is because there's an enforcement arm of the 20-week cutoff protecting this right. Because it's a moral and legal entitlement.
right.
So
Let me change that from conception.
from conception, what?
There's no laws that ought to be put in place from conception stopping anyone from doing having any ABs for any reason. Okay. So
Wait, wait, what? No, there would obviously be regulations in place. Like, I don't think people should be, I don't know, like somebody punches her in the stomach to induce a miscarriage or something. There obviously should be regulations in how the pregnancy is ended.
what if someone's having like 50 like ABs in a year or something, and you know
That's
that
impossible, but
I know, but I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, right?
yeah, if they just keep having abortion after abortion, I would say they're an irresponsible person that I wouldn't trust with a newborn baby anyway. So
Perfect.
maybe
There we
they
go. That's
should.
what I've been trying to get out of you. So you can recognize that some people are irresponsible people who shall not be trusted with a child, right? So, I mean,
Yeah, but the same could be said for somebody that refuses to have an abortion. They can still go on to be a terrible parent.
right. And in those cases, right, then like child services would step in. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe,
Yeah.
if they find out about it.
Right. But
Well, with the same hypothetical, the irresponsible AB after AB, what if all those ABs are before the 20-week cutoff?
that's what we're talking about from conception.
Oh, I must have missed that part. My bad.
No, you're
Yeah,
right.
if
I'm
it's
trying to keep up,
before
but
20 weeks,
I'm
then
kind of like completely lost. Because the enforcement arm, as you state, would enforce those rights before 20 weeks. But you said that
it would keep those rights protected. It wouldn't necessarily enforce them. They're there already. The enforcement arm is like what's protecting it legally.
up to the 20 weeks, right?
To electively remove, yeah. Like, if you're gonna say, I have autonomy, so I have the right to remove this other being regardless, then yeah, it's gonna be up until the precautionary point of viability when they have the capacity met to survive outside of her body. It's no longer about exercising rights to her own body at that point, so I'd find it unethical.
Wait, how does
Okay.
bodily autonomy stop at 20 weeks? Can you explain that again?
It doesn't. It's just whether or not it's justified in exercising that right, and I'm saying it's unethical to do so when it's applying to other bodies. Like, if they remove the baby at 21 weeks but didn't unalive it, it is gonna have like 60 to 70% chance of unaliving. So no, I don't think your own self-governance to your own body applies to putting other beings in a state that's worse off than they were before.
But unaliving is perfectly okay.
You don't have a right to unalive, you have a right to remove, and they're gonna unalive due to their own underdeveloped condition. So yeah, it's still justified for risk mitigation because it would be a justified unaliving, just like self-defense. So the same principles still stand.
But self-defense is nuanced, though, is it not?
Exactly.
Nuanced? If you're mitigating
Yes.
risk, then you're defending yourself.
Right, but legally speaking, since we're on the legal term, self-defense is nuanced in pretty much every jurisdiction ever. You have to sit in front of a jury that
talking
has
about
to
pregnancy.
justify. I know, but if you're using the self-defense argument, it has to hold true, right? So the idea is if
By
you have to
mitigating
then
risk.
be
Yeah, I've already
Hey,
explained this.
correct, yes, but you have to then assess that there is a risk there. You have to have a jury
Yeah,
actually
by
say-
being pregnant. We've already
I'm
gone
talking,
over
ma'am.
this. I know, sir, but I've already repeated this like 4 times.
Okay, but
like,
I'm asking you
simply
about your
being
limits on
pregnant
the
is
self-defense
the
idea.
risk. Simply
Very,
being
very
pregnant
cool.
is the risk. Remember
But the
when I
idea
said
of
that
self-defense
earlier?
is someone has to agree with you that there is a risk, and if you're putting the
What?
law in someone
Says
else's hand,
who?
yes, that's
Says
how
who?
every jurisdiction ever works with
What are
self-defense.
you
You have to be
talking
able to
about
explain
jurisdiction?
with
I don't know what
you
you're
have to be
talking
able,
about.
you have to be able to explain with words why you, in any self-defense scenario, had to do it that way.
That's not what I was even saying, so I don't know what you're responding to. No, I'm saying the principle
My point is
of
self-defense argument is nuanced.
great, I heard you. Yeah, wonderful. But the principle still stands. If they are mitigating a risk, and I already said that being pregnant
By
in
whose
and of
definition?
itself is a risk, and they are mitigating it
By your
by
definition.
having the pregnancy ended, then that is a form of self-defense. They're being their own self-advocate, they're self-governing, and they're exercising their right of removal. So,
By your definition.
what do you mean my definition? I did what?
Your
Definition
definition
of
is
what?
a risk. So what is a risk? Tell me what a risk is.
I just explained that. I said
Did
pregnancy
you?
in and of itself in this situation is the risk.
Okay, and that's self-defense how?
I just explained all this. I literally just explained this. Were you not listening?
Wait,
This
so
is why I'm getting frustrated. I've
wait.
repeated this 4 times and you didn't hear me clarify
Can
just
you
now?
can you give me a situation where you're not defending yourself against something that's actively harming you?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just said, you're being your own self-advocate. You're exercising your self-governance. That would be mitigating a risk.
No,
That is self-defense. Like, what do you mean?
risk
Like I
mitigation.
can give you I'll give you an example.
Thank
Say
you.
you have all these symptoms, you've been really sick feeling, you went to your doctor, they're like, yeah, no, you're fine. And you ask them to run the tests again, say, no, I swear, like the same symptoms are not only still there, but they're getting worse. So they run more tests, they're still like, yeah, no, you're fine. You have the option to defend yourself and be your own self-advocate by going to get a second opinion from a different doctor, and then they run their own tests and they're like, oh yeah, we found this gnarly disease that it turns out you have, and that's why you have all these symptoms. So yeah, that's self-defense. If you're able to be your own self-advocate and defend yourself against whatever harmful medical issues you may have or something.
Yeah, okay, but it's still recognizing that there's some amount of harm actively happening to you.
And the pregnancy is that. There is some amount of harm. In every single labor and delivery, no matter how healthy the pregnancy is, there is a risk. It can go from 0 to 100 really fast. People can hemorrhage or something and have a perfectly healthy pregnancy.
And I can die
And if
tomorrow. I mean, who knows, right?
exactly,
So I ought
and you
to
have
live
a
my
right
life like
to
this.
and you have a right to mitigate whatever risk to make sure that you're still alive tomorrow and the next day.
Oh,
Just like pregnant women do.
well, I think that I should just unalive myself today because I don't want to just wait until it's
I'm
done.
not talking about a principle of unaliving. I'm talking about a risk assessment and whether or not her choice is justified. Like,
You're
you
just
guys
saying, like,
keep going back to whether or not they can unalive when I've never made that claim.
well, you're just saying that, any amount of risk should be justified, and even though it is
What?
actively, basically, you're saying that can you give me an example where something isn't
Oh my
actively happening
God.
to you? Can you give me an example where something isn't actively
An
happening?
example of something that is not. Why would. I don't even know why you're asking me that. What is that
Because your
responding
definition of
to?
risk is so elastic that it can apply to everything.
I've explained this. If we're talking about pregnancy, which we're talking about pregnancy when it comes to abortion, so we're on the same page with that, right? We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Pregnancy in and of itself, just by being pregnant, the risk is now there of whatever risk may occur. We
Yeah, but
don't have a
what is
crystal ball.
risk? What is risk?
Risk as far as like what kind of harm could be foreseen or not.
Yeah, that can apply to
And
everything.
Definition of harm.
exactly. That's why you have different choices and ways of mitigating risk. And as long as it's done in a just way, you shouldn't be prevented from doing that, like
Okay, so
wearing a
what's
seatbelt in a car.
unjust? What's
You already said that.
unjust
Oh
about
my God, you
banning?
guys. We've gone in circles
Hold up,
for
hold
so
up,
long
butterfly,
now. It's been like an
You say that
hour.
you don't have an account of harm, but you keep on saying the word harm. Why did you just say harm right there?
Because he asked me to define risk and what I meant by that.
Okay.
So what's your definition of harm?
So if there's, I don't know, maybe some sort of physical injury or mental, psychological injury, both. Something that is negatively impactful on you, your psyche, your life, those around you. Any of those things could be harm.
Oh, okay. I thought.
But yeah, we've gone around in circles forever, and I feel like I'm
Yeah.
just repeating myself. So I appreciate it, but I'm going to go to
Thanks,
bed now. It's
Wildflower.
late.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you guys tolerated that.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was trying to be nice because I just know her or whatever, but that was crazy. That was a crazy take. Like, the moral bankruptcy is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you don't have any. You don't know what ought to be. This is so what this idea of what not ought to be is just completely objective. Like nothing nothing can be like claimed to be bad in any sense in any circumstance ever. And if there's any potential for risk now or in the future, like what?
If I may, what I thought the reason why I was sat on that self-defense argument is it's a poor argument. The idea that, it is a form of self-defense. Yes, but when self-defense happens, you have to be able to justify and explain in words why this action takes place. I can't have a homeless guy ask me for $1. I can't just be like, bang, 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 no, I don't have $1. And then be like, I thought he was going to mug me because of a supposed risk that may or may not happen.
Exactly.
Can I add something else to that? Okay, so hemorrhaging, she brought up hemorrhaging. That only happens after you deliver a child. And usually that happens in a hospital where they are right there and they can save you. I know multiple women who have hemorrhaged during after birth, and it's very unfortunate, but the medical staff, they saved them.
I had a hemorrhage in my head listening to her talk.
I feel like we won that pretty evenly. I mean, I feel like we won that pretty soundly. I mean,
you can't just say it's to stop risk and then not give a definition of what risk is. Like, that's not how that works. You can't do that. That's not how that works.
Wildflower, you can request back up.
Am I like, was I hearing stuff, or did she not say something about hemorrhage?
She did.
Yeah, she did.
So
I mean, Wildflower, you can come back up.
No. She's gonna go to sleep now. She ought not stay awake.
No, and when it comes to the idea of evicting somebody from your body that you don't want to be there, my issue with that is because in most cases you chose for them to be there in the first place. That is my issue there. I understand this whole consent can be at any time retracted, but what I'm getting at is this is the equivalent of giving somebody the keys to your fucking condo, and you'd be like, you can stay in here because I'm giving you my keys to my condo, and then you come in there and they're in your condo, and then you put lead in their melon. Like, that's not how that works. Except make the argument, she's like, I'm not talking about unaliving. Well, that is the result of what you are doing.
Yes.
I just don't think like her idea that something can go from 0 to 100. Then we'd be living our life on the edge constantly because anything can go from 0 to 100. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's
like,
risk in everything.
How could you possibly surely you don't live your life out like that? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like that's impossible. So.
You can't just stay in your house and do nothing. There's risk with everything, bro. It's not relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, there are risks. I mean, there are risks from abortion. She didn't mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost as if your body isn't meant to have a vacuum shoved up it, but that's a whole other conversation, right?
Yeah, abortion is like she said, "Oh yeah, abortion is utility to society." I'm like, what?
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either.
Oh, so we're playing gender card now.
How do you
That's
measure
cool.
that? How do you measure that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because she's still granted moral consideration at conception. So
Clearly not.
You're trading a life for potentially more life. Like, I don't understand that.
It's about trusting your body, and it's about trusting your doctor to take care of you. You can't just go get an abortion and take away a life because there's a complication.
So another issue I kind of had was she was talking about that rights aren't absolute, which is a crazy thing in and of itself. But the second thing she kept saying was essentially the strong arm of the law or legislation that protects this right, which is hilarious because laws change. Like, if I get put in power tomorrow, I'm going to say you can't have an abortion for any reason whatsoever, and then you just got to be like, well, that's how rights work, I guess. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
You can't just put your reasoning as to why something is or isn't okay and just like what you think the law would protect. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's why I asked the argument that rights even exist. She's making an assertion that this was a right. I wanted the argument that supported they have a right to this bodily autonomy, because I spoke to Wildflower a couple of times before.
Which I do believe you do have the right to bodily autonomy, but the problem is, like, you already made these decisions. This is another thing. It's like there's no such thing as asterisk, unless it's a situation you did not control, in which case lead therapy. But you didn't. There's no such thing as an accidental pregnancy. Like, you didn't choose to put her legs on your shoulders, bro. Like, what the hell are you talking about? That's crazy.
No, it's you don't just get pregnant from nothing. Don't get pregnant from nothing.
Walk outside and catch pregnancy like it's cold. Like,
You know what I heard before, that feminists had said they can get themselves pregnant from flowers?
I heard about that.
Did you hear about that?
I heard about they can get themselves pregnant from
I
bone
guess
marrow.
they be doing that and then aborting it.
easy. Sorry.
Wait, real fast with the whole
Are
rights,
you
with the whole
saying
rights thing.
gays are murder? What?
She said the rights are enforced, or they're defended by the enforcement. So, like, as far as a right to bodily autonomy, if someone were to unalive you, then your right to bodily autonomy doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so then pragmatically, which is what she was defending, wouldn't that still be the case if we were to make AB illegal all around? She would then have to agree to it. Because
Pretty
that
much.
would be the enforcement.
Because enforcement is what dictates your thought process.
Yeah.
Because moral and legal are 100% the same thing at all times.
Yeah, so she would have to be fine with it at that point. And not make any justifications against it, pragmatically.
It's...
If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I'm stretching it out too much, but
It's not stretched too much, because that was like the entire argument, is we have this right because of A, B, and C and the law. And when you start questioning all of these, she just fell back on the other topics. So when you said, what about moral? I'm not making moral arguments. And then she made moral arguments, which is another problem in and of itself. And
I
then,
wanted to address that, yeah.
what about legal? I'm not making legal. I'm talking about rights. But you said rights don't exist. Well, they exist. They're just not absolute. Okay, so they don't exist. Either rights exist or they don't.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you can't just
subjective
be
per
like,
person.
this free speech exists except for XYZ circumstances, or like,
I'm just
you
still
know,
curious,
I
like,
have-
how could she possibly be like pro-life on like what pregnancies ought to be like?
No, she's not pro-life. She's pro-choice. Like,
No, I said why. I know she said she's pro-life whenever it comes to like what pregnancies ought to be, but then she said like what she said was that she's pro-life. If it were left up to her, you know, what abortions ought to. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm tired of swim.
In a utopia is basically what she was saying. I think I know what you're
saying. Like the
utopia.
Anyway, yeah, what pregnancies ought to be like, or like what abortions ought to be like morally permissible. She said that if it was left up to her, she'd be like having a pro-life stance. But at that point, you know, it's like, okay, how do you think something is or isn't morally permissible? How you're grounding these morals for what ought to be or not ought to be, and then why aren't you applying these across the board? And you're just saying like, okay, I know that these people are breaking like some violations of like morals or like moral codes, but it's not enough for these people not to have the right to do something. So her morals or the right to do something trumps her morals. So I don't think that she's being like really truthful in the way that she's thinking through this, but I'm just like never heard of that position before where you value, okay, something is immorally bad, so immorally bad, but they should still have the right to do it. Like what? I don't
Yeah,
understand.
isn't that like a contradiction?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. It's
all that
immoral
argument
but still justified. Like if it's immoral, then it's not justified.
all it really was her this argument. I've heard this argument several times, and it really just boils down to because I said so, and that's kind of was my entire problem. Is every single time you asked her a genuine question, she just goes, "Because I said so," which is not her exact words, but that was essentially the crux of her argument. Because I believe this is the cutoff period, and the law agrees with me, therefore it is.
making a
That's
bunch of assertions. She wasn't making arguments. She was making assertions.
Yeah, that's my issue. So I don't know. It was really hard to listen to. That's why I kind of kept my mouth shut, because I really wanted to just like bite over and over again, and that's why I just muted my mic afterwards. I'm like, I'm
I really
done.
hope that if the self-defense thing comes up again, like if we're gonna plead to legality and mention self-defense, then why not mention the fact that applicable force has to be applied to every single self-defense case?
That's what I told her.
That's
Yeah,
basically
that's what
what I
we
was
were just
trying to
saying.
say.
Yeah.
Is that you have to be able to explain in words to a jury why you felt the need to do X, Y, Z in a self-defense scenario. So, like I said, if a homeless person asks me for $1, I can't just like pull the 9 and be like, I thought he was gonna bug me. You have to be able to explain why. You have to be able to take the idea of your risk that she kept trying to use, and then have an appropriate amount of force shown to mitigate said risk.
Yeah, that
And
risk assessment is insane.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
explained that to her before when I debated her last time. There's like a threshold for self-defense. You can't just like use lethal force in every single scenario. Like for
No.
example, if I shot you with a with a water pew pew, right? You're not justified in like pulling out a shot pew pew and unaliving me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and she started like yapping about this if I get a disease during pregnancy. Pregnancy doesn't cause a disease. It if she had a disease during pregnancy, that would be unrelated to the pregnancy. Are you talking about in general or? I was talking about Wildflower.
Oh yeah. Okay, I was sleeping and I like heard her while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
She was
Some
like,
crazy assertions about risk, and she just debated me, but she made some crazy assertions about like what risk ought to be, and then I'm like, okay, I think like your value of risk is very off. And she said, like, okay, well, I take a well, she changed her stance like 3 times. She's like, I take a self-defense principle of harm, and then I'm like, okay, so self-defense. I said, so
talking
doesn't
about-
someone actively have to be experiencing something in order to defend himself from it? And then she's like, oh no, I take a mitigation, a value of harm. I'm like, okay, so she gave me 2 values of harm that she said that she doesn't even value harm in any way. And then it was just all over the place. It's like, but she said that the risk just being pregnant is enough to basically give you the right to unalive for any reason, or unalive the fetus for any reason, have an AB. Any reason at all,
I mean, people just
racism, it doesn't matter. I gave her every reductio, and she said she thinks that it still ought to be the case, even though she doesn't think it's morally permissible. So she isn't willing to basically apply her morals to what she believes ought to
Well,
be.
that's what I was wondering
that's
too.
so insane because like she like just like a few weeks ago she was like saying that she thinks that she's actually pro-life now.
No,
Yeah, I
That's
heard
like
that. I
shocking
heard her say
behavior.
that.
She always
That's what-
flip flops. She flip flops.
I was wondering too, because she was bringing up the whole risk factor, like that was the main thing, but then it was also a 20-week cutoff. So what about 21 weeks?
Oh my
Wouldn't
gosh.
that, like, which one do you put first? Do you put the risk litigation, or do you use the 20-week cutoff? Like, which one do you
Yeah.
favor?
No,
If I
like-
may say, oh, sorry, Bunny, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was going to say the thing that bothers me is she was really hard on that 20-week rule. And then what's real funny to me is, like, when it comes to evicting somebody from your body that you don't want to be there, that terminology absolutely extends past 21 weeks. It extends into adulthood. What do you mean? I was really confused. Like, so all of a sudden they have value after 20 weeks, enough where
I
you
know.
don't forcefully evict them? That doesn't make any sense.
Really not a big difference in the second trimester from 13 weeks to 20 weeks. There's not much difference at all. Like, if you like look up what a 13-week fetus looks like, it's not much different from a 20-week fetus. And it's so like growing, it's just getting bigger, and it's like mainly developed around that time.
All right. Looks like we have an opposition.
Well,
All right.
real fast, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna head
Thanks,
to bed.
Dev.
De Niro, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
she
that was
kinda,
good.
Yeah, she was like making you sound stupid, and it was starting to frustrate me. So
I was just trying to be nice.
Yeah, I'm not going
But-
to entertain her again. I'm not going to entertain her on the panel again.
yeah,
I
so
thought
I'm
it
gonna
was-
pass out, guys.
Alright. Have a good
Bye,
night.
Evan. Have a good one.
All right, lady, what is your age and what is your stance?
35. I honestly didn't even know what the topic was about until I read it. I just saw Angry in here. He's my friend. But I'm definitely pro-life.
W.
What's up, you?
Absolutely.
Why are you pro-life?
Because I have every belief that none of us fucking asked to be brought here, but we were brought here for a reason, whatever that reason may be. and all of us deserve the ability to at least seek that purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's really crazy to me also that women, for the majority that are pro-choice, most of them have children, and I also find it very odd that these are the same type of women that will jockey for promiscuity, for, you know, like vibes and feel good and sex and that all being casualized, and yet they don't understand that sex is literally the only act on the entire face of the planet that results in pregnancy.
Yes. Yeah.
W.
Yeah, W. Well, we're in agreement, so.
I can drop down if y'all are listening or looking for opposition. That's fine.
I appreciate you stopping by, though. It's been a while since I talked to you.
All right.
All right. So, Nars, what is your age and what is your stance? Hello?
Sounds like a child. Sounds like.
That sounded like they're talking through a toaster. What is going on?
Yeah, what is your age and what is your stance? Hello, what is your age and what is your stance?
Hello. I knew it was a child.
Yeah, we're gonna drop this.
No.
Is it a child or someone pretending to be? Like,
Where
that
are,
almost sounds
if you're
fake.
pretending to be a child, that's weird.
honestly
Where are
don't
our
even-
parents?
Honestly, I don't care.
It's like 3:30 for me.
This is literally my gaming page, and I cannot tell you how many minors I've had to politely clap back at because I'm like, why are y'all seeking engagement with adults? Where are your
Where are
parents?
your parents? Yeah, where are your parents?
They're iPad babies.
know.
They let them do whatever they want, so yeah.
Those poor kids.
I swear.
How
All right,
long is
any
this?
opposition? Any opposition? If not, I'm gonna end the live.
Oh, I can try. Hold on, wait.
No,
What
no,
if
Larkin.
aliens?
No, we're not doing the trans political opinion shit. No, we're not switching sides.
Yeah, I don't like when people do that.
I hate it.
That is a real argument I've heard, by the way. Something about getting impregnated with a chest burster. I was like, what are you talking
Jesus
about?
Christ. Oh my god.
Can, like, if you don't agree with what the host is saying, can you join?
That'd be great.
There's like 13 people in here.
I think I'm on the right side of TikTok. I like this. I like it here. Y'all are cool.
Yeah,
Goth girls, yes, that or they're in agreement with protests where American flags are being burned on American soil.
Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, I saw that today.
Ugh.
I've seen all this No Kings BS today. There was a protest next to my house about it.
I'm so
You know-
disgusted with that, to be honest with you. Like, I'm just every time I see a video, I just get mad.
It's funny because like my parents were calling me like, "Hey, don't go anywhere tomorrow." I'm like, "Why?"
I
They're like, "There's a
am not
protest."
living
like-
in fear because of these people. Hell no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a better shot than them. I'm going outside. It's all good. It's fine.
Yeah, you know, I was on like a anti-Trump panel earlier today, and they were talking about January 6th, of course. I was like, y'all have no fucking room to talk after all these riots going on, and they
No.
literally were like, those are not happening. It's policemen smashing their own cars.
Honey,
blaming us.
peaceful.
Right, because they can totally drive the busted up fucking units back to the police department and park them without being able to see out of the busted fucking windshield.
Yeah.
Like, are you
So,
stupid?
they deny any wrongdoing of their political party. It's just absolutely insane.
What's crazy and probably will seem absolutely fucking insane to most of you is I used to be a far left extremist. Like, I'm talking way out there. Way out there. Way out there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you exactly the moment that I realized that everything that I had been regurgitating was absolute bullshit was when I sat there and I watched the very same people that I had used my platform, my time, my emotion, my investment of energy turn to the point where not only was I made to defend myself against the very same people that I used my time and all that to defend, usually, or advocate for, but watching them turn to a point where they were bickering and infighting amongst each other so much that it literally drove me to the point where I was like, I'm done. I can't even recognize this party anymore. They have absolutely no path. They have no way of getting to the things that they swear they're all about. And at the same time, watching all of that spontaneously implode before the election even got here. So that shot my vote for Kamala or Biden at the time out in the dark completely. I was done. I actually didn't even vote in 2024 because I was so disgusted with the choices. I think a lot of my followers on my other page perceive me to be like this avid Trump supporter. I'm not. I can't fucking stand the guy. Not as a person, not as a man. I think he's diabolical. I think he's conceited and full of himself for no damn reason. But as the leader of this fucking country, after dealing with absolute lunacy for the last 5 years, and to watch him make this drastic of a change under his first year back in office, there's no denying it. And it's going to look like absolute extremist measures to anybody looking on the outside in. But that's the type of shit that we've been fucking putting up with and dealing with. That's how crazy the shit got, that anything that we do to change it is going to look harsh.
Yeah, the left is so extreme, and I'm so glad like you're on, this side now.
Oh, me too. Me too.
I remember when you were when people found your old videos.
That was so fucking embarrassing.
And you were just like, oh no.
I literally rebuilt that platform from leftist bones. Like, I took that platform. I was like, I know all these followers are going to fucking hate me. I don't give a shit. I'm going to speak my truth, and I'm going to speak it loudly. And I'm going to tell y'all exactly all the fucking ways that you convinced me that every liberal and every leftist is just as deranged and fucking delusional as any conservative or Republican ever tried to tell me that you were.
Yeah, I used to like wash my mouth with like what I would used to say. Now I don't give a fuck because it's the truth.
You're going to get censored anyway. You're going to catch the violations anyway. The best thing you can do is just speak it. And when you start to get that fucking account ban warning status, shut the shit down, put it on private, work on a new one. Add people in from your old profile. I had to learn that shit the fucking hard way, man.
You've made like 5 pages.
I know. It's ridiculous. And actually, all of them are still up aside from one. Only one of the Simply Jades got taken down, but all the rest of them stayed, thank goodness. So I have those to run to when I need to.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah.
All this stuff happens on the right too, because the super like I'm relatively conservative in my viewpoints, but some of these, I guess I have a problem with Republicans, not conservatives, if that makes any sense.
Right. No, yeah.
And it's hilarious to me because I remember back when Trump got elected the first time, and full disclosure, I voted for him 3 times in a row, and reluctantly, really, but I did, and it was funny when he lost the House in his first term, and I was telling people, like, hey, yo, that's probably not a good thing, and everyone just started screaming at me like a bunch of idiots. They're like, you gotta trust the plan, it's 4D chess! I'm like, guys, losing the House isn't good, he's not gonna be able to pass anything now. They're like, no, you gotta trust the plan! Like, Jesus, y'all are just crazy.
I did vote for Trump these last 2 elections, but I'm not like freaking like heavy MAGA, but I love going on like anti-Trump panels, especially with a bunch of women on there, and just saying that like I'm MAGA.
They are so hateful. Oh my gosh!
I'm telling you, like it is so hilarious watching them wig out after I tell them that I'm like pro MAGA. It's so funny.
It's honestly so it's debilitating, really, because these are the very same people that are like, I'm a girl's girl, I'm always going to be there for the girls, and then like you exactly like, it's
you're
so
like
funny.
I love women so much, but then they call me a pick me after I tell them
you're against abortion. Oh, you're not a girl's girl.
Right? Like, no, I'm so pro women taking fucking accountability for their own actions that they make with their own bodies, though.
Yeah. When I start talking about this, it's kind of funny. When I mention I'm happily married, I've gotten everything from that's no fair and she's lost to, not joking, these people who are pro-choice and blah, 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 because of all these different circumstances and women are under attack,
told me that they hope my wife gets raped and has to raise a brown baby.
Oh
And I
God,
was
yeah.
like, what the fuck?
You would be so fucking surprised how many death threats I've gotten, how many people have messaged me saying they hoped my children got raped. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
wondering because I can
that's a
literally
normal
think
thing.
back on all the years that I spent as a leftist, and never one time did a Trump supporter or a Republican ever say anything like that to me. They were rude and disrespectful, but it never got that fucking far. And I will clarify this for any and everyone. The fact of the matter is about abortion is this for me, is that abortions that are medically necessary or needed as a result of rape or incest should never be denied. Point blank, never be denied. No questions fucking asked. But elective abortions, no, absolutely fucking not. You should not just to get to end a child's life simply out of convenience for yourself. That is the most selfish thing that I've ever heard of. That is running from accountability for your own actions.
98%, by the way.
Exactly, and that's not even arguable. Like we're not even. They never even try to argue against that standpoint, and it's disgusting to me because in the back of their minds they have to know that when you jockey for things like this, just like I said before, you are preaching to these upcoming generations that promiscuity is okay, it's acceptable, sex is casual. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Anybody can fucking have it. It's fine to have it before you're married. When in reality, our parents were never pushing us to wait for marriage to have sex because of biblical reasons. They were pushing us to wait till marriage to have sex as a safety net. Okay? Because they knew that sex is the only act on the face of the planet that results in reproduction, that results in pregnancy. So at the end of the day, if you want to fight against that, you're not only fighting to keep young mothers in a position where they are demeaned, they have very little chance to do anything but tread the poverty line, if even that. It's so oppressive to think about how they literally do this to themselves. It's not hard to comprehend the reasons why you shouldn't do it. And if you're gonna let lust override your logic, you're not ready to be having sex in the first place, like at all.
I can't relate to any of this. It's like I got a body count of 1 and I married her and I met her when I was 16. So it's like I don't know how to justify any of this bullshit. I just don't.
It's unjustifiable. I don't care who's
That's the
involved,
fun
what their
part.
background is. I don't even care. Like if you're gonna argue with me that sex is the only act on the entire face of the planet that results in pregnancy, you need help, and I can't give it to you. I can't.
Yeah. Can I tell y'all something?
Go ahead.
So I was at the what is it called, the rally where Trump got poo-pooed.
Oh wow.
You were.
I was there in Butler, PA. I live in Pennsylvania, and I went to the rally that day. I was just thinking about it as we were talking about
That
it.
must have been terrifying.
Oh yeah, my whole family was there.
That's crazy. Wow.
I
So
have
if you were
pictures.
there, was it faked?
No,
Thank you.
not.
Oh my God.
I wish that was fake.
Yeah.
I still have like PTSD a little bit from that. I
That's
have
it's scary.
pictures of it. It's so weird because my brother, he was pointing me out like the snipers on the roof, like the Secret Service men, and he was like, my brother told me, he's like, these people are there just in case if anything happens, and then something actually happened, and that shit was frightening.
Don't show the pictures on here though. For
Like,
obvious reasons.
well, no, it's not. I don't have any like graphic pictures. I just have like the pictures of like being there.
Mm. That's scary.
But
I don't know how to feel about that. That would freak me out. That's for sure.
I can
No.
imagine it all happened like super fast.
So fast.
But not fast enough.
Because he had ample.
We're not gonna talk about it. Never mind. We're not gonna get the host get bananaed.
You're
We're not
like
gonna let that happen.
literally
Hey, but back to the
asking for
abortion
his life.
debates.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wait,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, wait, does Izzy have something to say?
You invited me. I agree with you. I don't really got much to debate about.
Oh, no.
Izzy's a W. Yes.
Oh my god, she's so freaking pretty. I love your hair. I wish mine would hold a curl like that at all. I can do everything under the sun and spray hairspray like the literal movie Hairspray, and it's gonna be flat by noon.
That's
Not
my
everyone
hair.
can have golden locks like me.
Once my hair, I can curl my hair. Like my hair is kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, wavy. But when I straighten it, it goes back to being wavy. But when I curl it, it goes back to being wavy. Like it can't stay straight, but it can't stay curled.
Yeah.
It's just somewhere in between. I don't know.
That's a great problem to have. Anyway.
I mean, I'm probably gonna end because of no opposition. It's like 4 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's 3 here. Shit, I didn't even realize it was this late. I need to get my ass in the bed.
Yeah.
I know, I gotta wake up early. Shit.
Oh, it is 3. Wow.
But I can't sleep. It's actually
Time
kinda-
flies when you're having brain aneurysms listening to leftists, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, listening to Wildflower actually hurt my brain, so I'm gonna probably end.
I apologize for jumping in too much there. I was just really trying to but then I was like, you know what? This is his fight. This is his fight. I'm just gonna back up.
Nah, it was okay. Like Wildflower, I should not have tolerated that. It's like I already had conversations with her.
That's
It's
not,
really hard,
she wasn't
though.
even being logical.
It's like I was like telling myself, I was like, okay, don't just jump on the mic and tell her she's a fucking idiot. That's not gonna get you anywhere. Don't say it.
That was me earlier, bro.
Say it.
I literally could not stand what these people were saying, and I just went at them. I didn't care at that point. I was just so annoyed.
That's why I have so many accounts, so I can afford to fucking crash out on these motherfuckers.
I have 2 accounts. Like I also debate like the trans topic.
Girl, I've got like 5 or 6. I've lost fucking count, to be honest.
I don't give a fuck.
I have to go back and forth too because like I don't know. I said equal rights, equal fights is a joke, and then I got bananaed. Like what the?
Oh my god! What the fuck?
I called somebody an idiot, and I got bananaed. Like I don't know.
Bro, I get violated for fucking emojis like every other day.
Yeah, I put a clown emoji once and it got violated.
It's fucking ridiculous.
I have a prompt.
All right.
Prompts with the mustache.
Alright, good night.
Yeah,
Good night,
good night.
everyone.
Good night.
Nice meeting y'all.